All right. It looks like we got everybody we need here. Patrick, Henry, George. Great. We'll get going. Welcome, everybody, to the Superledger Podcast, episode 8. Pleased to say our guest today from Lunarspace.io. We got Patrick, Henry, and George. It's been a great journey here the last few weeks with you guys. You've shared a lot with our community, but I've been assured you got the whole afternoon as long as it takes to get this done. And I think everybody knows that's how I like to do business. So I appreciate you guys doing that for us in the community. You got a big project and a lot to unpack. So I look forward to getting to the bottom of that today. I'm your host, Chris. You can follow me at Coreum Concepts on YouTube. And my co-host Articulate, he's got a great presence on omniflix.tv, as does CAF. I encourage you to check that out. As Articulate mentioned, Coreum Community DAO has sponsored this episode, along with the partners with that, Scott, Marco, Articulate. We did this podcast to create a consistent and reliable space to gather and exchange value and ideas relating to the Coreum Superledger, XRP Ledger, IBC, the whole works put together. So it's a big community, and we hope to provide a hub of information and resources for that. So next week is episode 9. I'm excited to say that the team from Whelp will be joining us for an update on their decks. So make sure you tune in. Just a note that it will be a little bit earlier to hopefully accommodate the team from overseas. So we'll be starting at 1 p.m. Eastern time instead of 3. So make sure you keep your eyes open for those reminders. And if you need to stake on the Coreum Community DAO, learn more about staking, you can head to coreumcomunitydao.com. All our links to our Discord, everything is there. So with that, Articulate, thanks for joining me once again, co-host the podcast. How are you today?
Great, man. I'm excited. I'm a little bummed out because, as you know, this week, Friday, I'll be heading out to the Middle East. So I'll be over there for a couple of weeks. It's family, events and stuff. And I'll be trying to catch, the podcast as I can. But I definitely know that you will be doing a great job. The team will be doing a great job and bringing the information to the community. But it's a little crazy over here weather-wise. And I don't know about where you guys are at, but yeah, it's been colder than normal. But hanging in there and preparing some more new music as well. So I found a beat, Chris. So the Coreum Concepts um, anthem, the Superledger anthem is being written as we speak. So yes, those are some of the things on my plate right now.
I could be more excited to hear that. I really look forward to that. Your song, I'm sure, has already become my anthem for 2024, and the Superledger podcast is going to be a great spot, powerful place for you to display your music, and I look forward to that. Appreciate everything you're doing for us. Patrick, Henry, George, you've been generous introducing yourselves and your ideas to the community. Launch was this week. Maybe for those maybe just joining in here now or listening later, maybe give a quick update or quick introduction on yourselves and let us know what's going on with your launch, and then we'll just roll up the sleeves and dive deep into it after that.
Hey guys, yeah, thank you for having us on again. We love talking to you guys. Articulate, I'm super excited about your new song, man. I'm not gonna lie, the first one's been stuck in my head. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'll be looking for that. Yeah, though.
Thank you.
Thanks again, guys, for having us on to speak in length about a lot of the stuff that we got building. We have like you said at the beginning, we have a very big project, a lot to unpack here. So yeah, I'm looking forward to get into it. For those who don't know me, I'm Henry, co-founder and president of Lunarspace. Direct partner with Patrick. We are everything we do together. Um, no decisions made without each other, right? So yeah, nothing different there. I think you guys all pretty much know me. The pre-launch token sale went beautifully, and we got a bunch of you guys. Really, I recognize a lot of people here. as our phase one. So we're super excited to get you guys onboarded and start to work with you guys directly on some customized utility zones. And we're going to unpack a lot in there and what we can do with our utility zones with the Web3 community. Super excited to connect some IBC, some Coreum, some XRPL, different tools so that we can all use Lunarspace in your own personal zones to manage your Web3 ecosystem.
That's a great intro, Henry. Let me just add to that. So for anybody that's new to our project and is just jumping on, I'll give you a real brief 10,000 foot overlook. Lunarspace is a SaaS and SDaaS software development company. We've been producing software for about 25 years. So definitely legacy Web 2 centric with the Microsoft ecosystem, Google and whatnot. That said, we love to customize API and UI to meet organizations' needs in a day-to-day business acumen perspective. So that's our sweet spot. We are B2B as a core tenant. That said, a lot of what we have is 25 years of process and different, what I would consider best practices that we are super excited to bring to the table into the Web3 world. As we all know, over one of the most significant bear markets that hopefully we'll ever see in the last so many months, utility. So you can look at us as a SaaS and SDaaS utility API custom software development company. Okay, so that said, why are we here in the Web3 world, and why are we so fired up about blockchain, specifically Coreum, having built a smart token on top of an international standards organization 222 ISO compliant set of Rails or blockchain. I'll use Rails a lot in my descriptions just because that's how I look at all this incredible technologies. It's Rails to other universes, if you will. And what made Coreum so special for us as we dove into the Web3 world several years ago, when it jumped on our radar, we just saw the absolute niche that Coreum is going to exploit with their special feature set within their smart token contract. Okay. So that smart token contract sits on an ISO 222 compliant blockchain. Those are the kind of elements that really fire us up as a Web2 SaaS-based development company charging full speed ahead into the Web3 world and, more importantly, the blockchain world. I think even in the last 72 hours, you had Larry Fink from BlackRock come out and say the whole world's going to be tokenized. And I totally agree. I think we're seeing everything start to migrate into a public ledgering blockchain assets on chain type of environment. And we want to be one of the pioneers, if you will, one of those wagons heading west, dealing with the engines over here in the United States, dealing with the elements, dealing with no resources around us, just pioneering this new technology in a way that's applicable to most size organizations that want utility. So that's our third pillar of strength. Our first pillar of strength is we have 25 plus years of building custom API type code, building process, helping organizations be more efficient, therefore being more profitable, and therefore able to compensate their staff better or invest in more marketing or infrastructure or whatnot. I think the third pillar to me is where my passion comes in, and I'll try not to be too long-winded because I can get after a little bit about HAMP. What is HAMP? HAMP is the Human Activity Mining Protocol. This is what makes our project, I believe, very unique. And the reason why we have an LSX token and why it's not an AMM, rather it's more of a utility token, specifically it's a layer 2 protocol reward token on the Coreum L1 blockchain. So now that I've defined, LSX as our liquidity instrument, as the tide that will lift all zones or all boats, HAMP is the actual smart token that will fundamentally mint a Lunarspace token. So again, we are breaking the boundaries of what's traditionally known in the Web3 and crypto world. We're building an actual token. The only way it can become in existence is if a Lunarspace HAMP protocol is implemented. So that's really our third pillar. And I like to use that kind of thought process in terms of a triangle, one of the most strongest shapes out there. And then we have our trinity of safety and security, which is ISO and our chain analysis, and then having an insurance policy on all our bonding pools. So we take that same philosophy with our fundamental understanding of what we are and what we're building. We add our trinity of security, and now you're talking about a very safe and secure ecosystem that you can invest in and know that we're using the most proprietary, modern types of security elements to protect those stored assets. Henry, I see your hand up. I'll be quiet.
Yeah, no, that was great stuff. I think you really teed it up for what we're gonna want to talk about a lot going forward is HAMP, the Human Activity Mining Protocol, because that is the fuel to the entire ecosystem, and to the LSX token. I think that is something that we don't want to gloss over so quickly. So he said something in there that rings true for the future of the entire lunar space and zones ecosystem. The LSX token is only going to be generated through the the Human Activity Mining Protocol within the zones ecosystem. So that is our future process of how to generate LSX. The reason why I wanted to kind of jump in there is because you guys, a lot of our phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4, they're being granted LSX in this initial pre-sale process. So I wanted to just highlight the fact that this is a one-time thing for founders. The reason why Coreum is so beautiful in this is their smart tokens enable us to roll out with that feature and turn it off when this phase 4 ends. So this is something that is going to be not happening in the future. So that's why you want to get in on this founder level, because one, it's discounted. Two, it'll never be generated like this again. And I just wanted to highlight that because of how amazing Coreum smart tokens are, and one of the big reasons why we can bring this safely to an enterprise level with utility bonded zones already established for our founders.
And so just so I have it pictured right, effectively the LSX that's available now is just an allotment one-time deal. Here on forward, all LSX will be basically exchanged with HAMP tokens, which is generated by the activity within the protocols.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, the other way around. So when we deploy alpha to our FBZs, our founding bonding zone. So one of the benefits of investing early, number one, is this will be the only time that there will be an exchange where you can buy an allotted amount of LSX at a significant discount. Once that auction is over, and that's all baked into the smart contract, George did a fantastic job. As a matter of fact, my brother, who's I think on the spaces right now, we were brainstorming how can we affect a pre-sale, not affect our tokenomics, but yet tap into our foundation's grant supply, because we're going to be granting as well. We're going to want people to come over to Lunarspace, build and participate. So within our tokenomics, we have an allotted amount of LSX to be able to help early adopters and supporters. But once that amount is gone, the remaining amount will be simply to maintain the stability of the bonding pools in the ecosystem within the liquidity strategy. So that being said, it's important to understand that it's literally written into the code. And let me just touch on this for some of the new audience that don't understand the specificity and what makes Coreum's smart token contract so unique. It's unique because it sits on top of a very solid, stable ISO blockchain. But it's the smart token contract that enables us to do very specific things with our two token strategy. And Chris, you have a very good point. The difference is our HAMP protocol, let's say in a financial sales environment, as financial sales representative or users log in, from the moment they log in, everything they do within the UI and within the process of their organization in terms of their roles and responsibilities will ledger every one of those activities. As those activities accumulate relative to the goal that was set for that protocol, it will mint 100 HAMP tokens, and that backend will send that 100 HAMP token message to the zone factory. The zone factory receives those 100 HAMP tokens, burns them by converting them into to one LSX. So 100 HAMP tokens equals one LSX. So think 100 pennies to one LSX, which is pegged at $1. So the fundamental underpinnings of our tokenomics is our token will be pegged at $1. And we are going to put together the type of liquidity strategy with yield farming and different yields to where we will peg at $1, meaning we'll do everything in our power to have our reward token be at no less than $1. So by pegging it at $1, it gives us a lot of unique ability to dynamically create a plethora of protocols within one organization, virtually an unlimited amount of different roles and responsibilities for people to be tracked on. But fundamentally, the protocol in the zone itself, think of a generative AI model, a large language model that's tucked into that zone, and it's watching the behavior of all the users. It's ledgering the key touch points that would equal into a certain number of HAMP points for that particular process function. It ledgers it, it reaches 100, it sends it to the zone factory, it burns it, converts it, and then auto bonds it in your treasury bonding zone. That is your liquidity instrument that will grow the more you use the system. And the reason why it'll grow is because of our bonding founding zones liquidity pools. We'll be able to add the type of revenue through APY, annual percentage yields, and the various strategies that we spin up like relays and validators. But also remember, what makes us fundamentally different than most Web3 companies is that we're a fee-driven front end, meaning our Web2 services bring in fee revenue. And every dollar generated in fee revenue goes to our foundational global administrative pool, what we call GAP, which is our Lunarspace ground control treasury, our fundamental bonding pool. So a big part of our strategy is to continue to increase our safe and secure yield farming so that our liquidity pools and bonding pools all have a very slight appreciation with regards to pegging that token at $1 when we launch. So sorry, long-winded question or answer, Chris, but great question. Fundamentally, you use our zones. Our zones will accumulate your activity, ledger it, and relative to that zone's roles and responsibility and goals, once 100 HAMP mathematically is generated with whatever user, that particular user and that user's wallet fires a message to the zone factory. It knows to burn and mint one LSX, and that one LSX is auto bonded into their pool. So I'll kind of open it up for some questions because that was a mouthful.
Well, and so what's your mechanism to maintain the peg to $1 for the LSX?
Good question. So outside of the foundational bonding pool that Lunarspace is accumulating, with the various utility bonding zones that we're going to spin up, mostly relays, validators, one of our core treasury functions will be to take the assets we have and start to create a very safe, solid yield. We're going to take that yield, and that yield is the liquidity for the HAMP protocol that will convert into LSX. Our relays, validators, and future liquidity pools is how we're going to ensure or work very diligently on ensuring that the LSX token doesn't fall below $1. Do I have the exact specificity and equation as of this moment? Not yet, but what we're doing is collectively as a team is we're putting together a couple different financial models to challenge that thesis. And what I mean by that is if the smart token contract, the feature sets that we've been able to unsurface and understand. And as you've heard on a couple of these other spaces, there are a lot of different feature sets that Coreum has in their smart token that these other chains don't. So there are mechanisms we're going to put in place that if in the secondary market, someone's trying to unload a significant amount of LSX, that we have the bandwidth to be able to pick that up for a penny and burn it so that we have the levers of supply and demand to ensure a dollar peg. So again, being an L2 utility token, we're not an AMM. We're not subject to some of the other impermanent loss deflation type roadblocks or gaps that I think most AMMs will fall into. So again, because we are also generating fee revenue on the Web 2 side and we're feeding our master liquidity pool, I think we're going to be more than equipped to be able to ensure that if someone's trying to unload LSX for less than $1 than in a secondary market, that our AI bots and our treasury are out there buying those tokens and burning them from a supply and demand perspective. So I don't know if I answered that question deeply, and if there's a tokenomics guy that would love to jump up here and ask questions and challenge us, I'd love that. But that is the thesis. That is our commitment. We want the LSX token to be $1 or more so that it can be viewed as a real reward token. And when someone does their job right or is a part of an organization or votes or does whatever and they've reached 100 points, they know they've earned an LSX relative to where stored value is at the time. So just long-winded answer, but hopefully I answered it.
Oh, I appreciate that. And for those just joining us, don't worry, we're all settling in here for the afternoon. There'll be plenty of opportunity to ask questions. Just going to get some of the basics covered here off the start, but I definitely will make sure everybody has their opportunity to ask questions. No worries about that. So currently, you have two validators up and running. Ours would be one of them, the CAF LSI validator, and Camel King here in the audience also has the Bruges validator, the LSI validator. Is that the only service that's up and running as far as what you guys have built here, or is there other tools are available now or becoming available soon?
Good question, Chris. Thanks for that. Yeah, no, we wanted to demonstrate the efficiency of a utility bonding zone. And literally that spawned from one of our milestone grant wave conversations with Coreum, where they were saying, hey guys, and this was quite a few months ago, by the way, bear in mind, this was, I think, in our second or third month of diving deep into the grant and building our butts off. But with that comment, sparked the thought process. Well, heck, number one, we got to get our validator up because we're fully baked into Coreum. We want to be fully baked into Coreum. We want to support the Coreum blockchain in any way we can in a positive way. And then number two, knowing the type of development team that we have with George and Athena, quite frankly, I wanted to see if he could execute while still building the primary infrastructure, a spinoff to kind of create VOS, capital V, lowercase a, and uppercase S, and that stands for Validator as a Service. We want to be able to provide these utility bonding zones for all types of validators. So we were able to demonstrate to ourselves first that number one, we could get our validator up in a couple weeks and have it be on Azure and have it be locked down and tight and super secure. We put the message out there, and you guys were so gracious to trust us with your business, along with Ali and Camel, that we wanted to kind of stop, drop, and roll and demonstrate that although we were slightly new to the Coreum validator game, but we wanted to execute. So we got your two validators up within so many business days, if not less than 2 weeks, once you guys committed and were gracious enough to upload on trust your 25,000 Coreum to a new group that you didn't even know. So number one, I want to thank both of you. Also, Cosmos Haas is been very, very supportive with the validator. He self-delegated some of his core over to our our gap or our primary validator. So anyway, Chris, that is a perfect example of what we are doing right now. So to answer your question specifically, we plan on spinning up 3 additional utility bonding zones, and one or two that you're interested in is the DAOs, right? So we have what would be considered an inner zone intra DAO set of smart contracts that's going to enable all types of decentralized autonomous organization type functionality within a zone. And then selfishly, we're going to build what would be considered an outer zone DAO, if you will, both a signaling DAO and then a code release DAO, that outside groups can be involved that aren't necessarily privy to your intra-group discussion. So we're taking this very much from a business process acumen perspective, and we want to spin off zones that really will help Web3 and the youth of Web3 be able to jump on these tools, kind of like the suite of services Google offers or Microsoft. You have Word, you have Excel, you have their email, you have now they're providing VoIP services. You look at Discord, it's a messaging board that has everything you need right there outside of a mini CRM or a true storage in terms of documents. So to answer your question, what's on the radar right now are both of our DAOs, right? Intra and outer DAO. We also have our PaaS, which is privacy as a service. We have a fully documented approach to how we're gonna help our zones maintain custody of their own keys with a multi-sig, multiple 2FA type of TSS security around the fundamental zone's primary treasury, wallet and keys to the super admin to the zone. So we're taking that very, very serious. So those are the 3 UBZs that we're pumping out as soon as we can get code. And then obviously the primary zone that will house our base utility, which is a light CRM, message board, so full communications, VoIP, messaging, text, SMS, voicemail, auto attendant. If you run a call center, some call center add-ons, messaging, full document and attachment storage, along with email, and then your more generic operating business acumen CRM type of utility. So those are the 4 alphas that we're speaking of that we should be able to execute if this pre-sale and with a couple of the grants that are out there all come together, hopefully in a positive way over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're talking about hopefully in the next 90 days that we're able to launch our alpha basic zone that gives you those basic utilities. And then people that want to just validate or want just a way to hide their seed phrase or store their seed phrase and not count on a third-party custodian, someone that wants to be able to set up, let's say, an intercompany DAO so that they can all vote on their top employee of the month. Those are the type of rails and utilities that we want to put out in the next 90 days.
Well, that's exciting to me. That was going to be my question, so I'm glad I didn't have to appear so selfish and come out and ask that. So I appreciate that rough timeline you're giving. Henry, I know you're passionate about DAOs. What are you bringing to what you guys are building here? I guess comparing it to DAO. What do you plan to bring over that is going to utilize Coreum in a way that it can expand on DAO or make what you're doing unique to it?
It's a good question. Well, I like DAO's community approach and bringing. So that's where I'm kind of playing with the 2 approaches of a community DAO and an enterprise DAO. So I want to bring DAO's approach to the outer zone DAO, which speaks on the LSX model at an overall level. And then within the intrazone DAO, that's where I'm trying to mix the 2. This would be something where, and Patrick, please step in on this too, because this is more his zone with HAMP. So with intrazone DAOs, I want to be putting the super admins in charge of their organization through a DAO model. And I think that there's a lot from DAO that I can use for that too, but I wanna keep a lot of the traditional community DAO structure into the outer zone DAO.
Yeah, let me add to that. That's a great point, Henry. So let us share what we plan to do with the UBZ. So we're going to be using obviously our own tools. This is the biggest reason why our Lunarspace MVP1 was a pure utility API play, because our future MVPs will be all worked on our utility bonding zones, whether it's an ERP where we're bringing in all the different elements of a corporate build, or just a basic CRM because I want to keep track of all the people that I love, or a DAO, intra DAO. So we will have multiple DAOs in Lunarspace. One will be a code DAO, one will be how we operationally improve our processes and best practices review. My goal with George and the development team is to create the type of rails where you fundamentally can select the type of DAO structure you want and have that particular UBZ enable those processes. So there, as you guys know, there's multiple DAOs out there. What we're referring to is more what would be called more of a signaling DAO, where I'll give you an example. Hey, we are looking to add this set of Rails feature set to the HAMP protocol. It's going to take us 90 days and it's going to take the foundation, a good, $250,000. Do you guys feel like this would be useful for your environment or your ecosystem? And they would be given HAMP credit for voting and participating and giving us their feedback. So, and then therefore we would bring it back in, throw it into our intra DAO and reward our internal teams to really take a step back and let's isolate best practices and deploy based on voting. So that's a series of type of DAOs that maybe some Web3 companies have thought of or not thought of. But we also want to bring in the traditional code set DAOs to where, if you want to get real technical, we'll have those feature sets. George has assured me with his team that when we create these DAO zones, inner or outer, it might just be one UBZ where we have that kind of functionality where we can turn on and off those elements that make it an intra and outer. Again, I want to emphasize for the people that are listening, we're not talking theory with some of these items. We're talking about literal feature sets within the smart token contract that George and I talk to almost every week about how we can unsurface the dynamic nature that this blockchain allows us to effectuate process that will help us, achieve our goals. So not to be just too long worded and just give you a bunch of word salad, but at the end of the day, we're able to do these things because of the smart token contract on top of an ISO blockchain. So starting to really wrap our heads around the uniqueness of Coreum and what we're able to do to exploit these feature sets. The one thing I want to tell developers in the spaces, if you haven't figured this out or you're just starting your journey down developing with Coreum, is make sure you understand that it's always better to throw as much feature in your initial launch that you can disable and then in the future enable, that allows you to be able to kind of fork the road with certain processes that you want to do with your token, whether it's an with your L2 token. But I hope I added to Henry's answer. And if you guys wanted to drill a little bit more into the DAO stuff, Henry has a good beat on
Well,
what's out there. We're trying to make something a little bit unique and more dynamic and flexible.
yeah, so I just wanted to come in and say that DAO is an influence, but it's not really like legitimate tooling that we're going to be bringing over here. So that was one of the first places that our developers came from. So we're going to be bringing a lot of DAO philosophy towards community here, but we're doing something much different when it comes to DAOs and helping these zones have a voice in the overall Lunarspace community.
And so, if I understand it right, you guys will be presenting this technology to a Web2 enterprise as a way in a user experience that they're used to, with this all running in the background. Is that where your role as Lunarspace still stays in the middle of all of this?
Yeah, so that's
Exactly. So what we would do is we would wrap this highly complex technology, this blockchain smart contract technology, behind legacy Web 2 front end UI, and then provide them the wizard or the guidance to use the software of the zone as if they were using like a Web 2 HubSpot portal, right? So give them the tools they need in a Web 2 format, hide and mask all the block 3 and the complexity of Web 3, but yet give them the ability through a wizard to say, okay, starting off, what type of DAO are you? So take them through that process, walk them through setting up their UBZ DAO zone. But the bottom line is, once they have that set up, they own it. They have the keys. It's theirs. You
Yeah.
know, outside of any type of anti-money laundering or any type of, you know, legal issues, these zones will always be out in the ecosystem with their keys that they own that we won't have access to. The only thing that we can control as an ecosystem is the treasury bonding zones, is the liquidity aspect of it. But yeah, so I just wanted to add that to that.
Yeah, so within the intrazone DAO, so the ones that the zones are going to be controlling with their HAMP system, that is what would be considered as a signaling DAO. So they're going to be giving feedback on their own HAMP and their the UI and UX of their ecosystem, and they'll be doing it'll go through the same process as you see with general governance on a lot of these tokens, but on the back end. We want to give these enterprises a voice in their Web3 tools and a voice within their own community. So we want to give high value earners of HAMP within a certain zone. We want to give those specific people maybe a higher vote and maybe a higher reward for them voting a certain way that the company might also vote with. So there's a lot of tooling that we can do with our intrazone DAO with HAMP and the smart token that gives the ecosystem a voice and gives the employees a voice. That's one of the things that really excites me most about using governance and a lot of the community-driven approach, but on an internal level within the zones.
Well, and just to let everybody know, this isn't just for enterprise either. Like, we're obviously looking at this for our use cases for the Coreum community DAO, and utilizing not just the DAO technology, but if I understand right, you know, it can effectively replace our Discord and other communication channels, and have that all under the one umbrella, all generating HAMP for those activities.
That's exactly it. And I'll add one more cherry on top of that thought process. And again, DAO is just one of the UBZs that we're talking about. It's an important one, I think, because there's a demand for it. We've had other groups reach out to us and are looking forward to when we spin these smart contracts up. Because think about the underpinnings of these DAOs, right? We want that liquidity component. You want that reward component. And one of the things that George and I have been talking about is white labeling the HAMP token itself. So if you're running a Coreum DAO or Coreum Concepts DAO, your reward token or the protocol token would be your branded token that would convert into to an LSX and then into your bonding pool. But we want to do some very community-driven, direct-to-consumer almost, if you will. So if you're a small group of guys and you want to spin up a utility intra-DAO that has the Discord baked into it, because to run a DAO, you need that messaging board, you need that community, you need that ability to all come in and discuss and share and vote and whatnot. So to your point, Henry brings up where our core tendency is. And again, the bigger groups that we bring in that have the bigger wallets that are willing to invest more Web 2 capital into what we're doing and helping them through their transition, we're taking a portion of that and we're applying it to our Web 3 liquidity approach. So we're double dipping. We're bringing Web 2 people over to Web 3 by hiding Web 3. And then the Web 3 community, we want to bring Web 2 type tools in the Web 3 community that would help maybe some of the younger spin-ups that might not have a CEO or an operator or a CFO. We can give them some of those tools within their zone to make, with education and whatnot, easier. For instance, having a light accounting module within every zone. So if you want to keep track of your expenses, what the DAO community is spending, all those type of little utility tools within a zone that can run an organization or a small group of people, or even for yourself. Those are the type of usable Web 2 tools that we're baking into our Web 3 environment.
Yeah, I'm very excited about all of that, and that's one of the great perks that I see um, as highest value to what we're doing here is having first access to that as one of the founding zones. So I really look forward to utilizing that, and I know Camel here. I brought him up on stage. He's also a member of the founding zone, obviously. So I've been stealing the stage here. Camel, articulate any questions you want to throw in here. Go ahead.
Camille, you can go ahead first.
Yeah, thank you, and welcome, Patrick and Henry. Actually, there is another thing that I'm trying to, but let's see. I'm trying to find out if we could like book a spa, for Lunarspace, Saudi Arabia, and Smart Future Expo in Saudi Arabia, so they can get the chance to showcase for their innovation, technology, or transformative services. So we hope that we can see Lunarspace, inshallah, soon in that expo.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. Ollie's been very, very helpful and supportive to the community, you guys, in terms of helping us unsurface opportunities within Saudi Arabia. One of the main core tenets of what we're doing for our Web 2 folk to get them off the old cloud-based systems, certainly from a ransom perspective and data theft perspective, is we will be decentralizing our data sets on our own stack. And we're going to be opening up data centers in at least 6 to 7 pro-crypto countries, Saudi being one of them. And Ollie's being so unbelievably helpful, and what a wonderful resource to point us in the right direction. Number one, to partake in one of their biggest expos, but even more importantly, referring us a genius level data guy who can help us set up the right rack in Saudi. And one of the most important things about decentralization, and certainly being a hybrid, because we support Microsoft ecosystems, is taking all of that Microsoft Web 2 infrastructure and mirroring it and then spreading it around the world, so that if anything were to happen at that location, we're able to spin up that data is live and it's decentralized. So I just want to throw that out there, that if anyone is in a country, a pro crypto country, and they want to partake in our data structure, what I'm going to be called, it'll definitely be a utility bonding tool, but we're going to compensate greatly for individuals in certain regions that support us and ensure that we have the best tools in that region possible.
Yeah, and this is that thought process is going to go directly into our Lunarspace validator zone. That is going to be a little bit more towards phase 2 of our future builds, but that's where some people are going to want to be validating on a lot of our decentralized tech, because we have a lot of cool things, some cool strategic partnerships with some new tech that we're going to be rolling out with in the future as their rails kind of align with ours. So when we do have our LVZs out there, which would be something that Ollie would probably be a pioneer of, for us as a user, as a true LVZ. That's going to be something that's going to be really exciting for validating Lunarspace and Coreum, with some of our liquidity pool process that I think Patrick might want to talk about LPs in a little bit.
Well, and I think just the acronym LVZs, right? So I'm thinking, what is LVZs, Henry, again?
It's the Lunarspace Validator Zone. So that's
Oh,
something that I've
gotcha.
been putting together for these specific data sets and decentralizing and validating throughout the Lunarspace ecosystem. Because when we do get to that level, we're going to want to validate and combine our founders bonding zones with our future LPs. Kind of taking advantage of the Coreum ecosystem as a whole in that way. That's going to be one of the main things that I am going to be wanting to see out of my own utility bonding zone that I'm going to be working on every day too.
Right. No, sorry. I got what you're saying. So the term that I've been using is VAAS, BOSS, right? Validator as a service. That term is more in reference to we want to be able to be the software development and support company for anyone who wants to validate for major chains, right? Or major validators. And one of the cool feature sets about our what we generally call a UBZ, a utility bonding zone, what Henry was referencing is our validator bonding zone. So the bonding zone itself, the VBZ, and in my head, I keep thinking we have a service called VAS, which is validator as a service, because we don't want to just be able to spin up zones for just Coreum. As more and more need comes to the XRPL and having relays and validators for XRPL and certain different projects in the IBC world, we want to be able to offer the UBZ, right? But it would be a specific utility bonding zone called VBZ, which would be a validator's bonding zone. That would be the tool, the UI that you would log into with your seed phrase, not only see all your assets, but you'd be able to look around, look at the ecosystem. If you wanted to put more assets into this validator and then this relay, we're hoping to be able to give that type of flexibility and functionality that when you sign in and you're looking at that dashboard and you just made a bunch of money or you had an airdrop and you want to move your assets around, we want to be that sort of DEX type of locked zone from a validator or relaying perspective. So that's all encapsulated in that thought process of utility when it comes to validating and relaying and helping these networks and helping the transactions of this liquidity transfers move smoothly. And obviously, we're going to build a very healthy slowly build a very healthy set of liquidity pools, relays, and then ultimately our DEX so we can play a role in the secondary market in terms of our own token. But yeah, so validator bonding zone is the actual specific zone that you would buy if you just wanted to do validating and relaying.
Yeah,
Okay, and then go ahead, Henry.
yeah, no, I just wanted to say that's been the primary focus of mine for bringing this tool to be extremely beneficial to the Coreum community, because I know we want to integrate IBC capabilities as best as possible. We saw how amazing it was for the core Osmo pool on Osmosis. We want to emulate and accelerate a lot of this cross-chain tooling. This is something that's going to benefit the Web3 and Coreum side of our build at an immediate level. And then when we kind of have these rails in place and have this tight community of founder zones working together to kind of expand the rails of Coreum to IBC with XRPL and Solo. These are things that I think are extremely beneficial for Coreum in general. And we're going to be using these exact same processes and abstracting them on the Web 2 side so that Web 2 can come in and provide that same level of benefit that all of you Web3 extremely technical people know about already and use and benefit from. Web 2 can come in, Web 2 Capital can come in and do the same thing and provide extreme benefits for LSX, extreme benefits for HAMP, and then broader Coreum, because Coreum is the rails that LSX is built on. So we want to be and that's where the stable coin kind of mentality comes in. It's not a stable coin, but it's very non-volatile. And that's where the Coreum Smart Token is so beautiful, because you can create mechanisms that combat those things that general AMMs have a really tough time at the community level figuring out. Um, so I think that that's just going to be, and all of these tools that Patrick and I have kind of been going over at a broad level, these are all tying directly into LSX and giving, creating bigger and bigger LSX pools as we draw in more Web 2 capital. Our founder zones are just going to be growing with us with more APY, first access to all of these cool new toolings, and first access to testing out our CRM and building your HAMP pools. you're going to want to spin up your own validators and to spin up your own community DAOs. You're going to want to grow your own ecosystem from within. I think it's going to be an extremely uh, useful tool for any organization, any size, to really start to grow and provide use case to their own people.
And so another source of value is the privacy as a service. So could you maybe explain that for people that don't even maybe necessarily know what privacy as a service is, and what value it'll bring to the ecosystem and Coreum maybe specifically?
That's a good question. Let me touch on that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Henry, because Henry actually wrote the docs for our what we're calling our PaaS service, right? Privacy as a service. And I guess one of the things to point to would be BitGo. BitGo is that phenomenal country that Coreum just aligned with, and they have a pretty deep stack of code and utility. They're definitely a company that we'd like to talk to and make sure that there's a beautiful symbiotic relationship with them. But once again, this is a third-party custody strategy. What we're looking to do is not bring in any third party, rather have the mechanisms in place utilizing and extrapolating the feature sets within the Coreum Smart Token contract, along with an IBC secret strategy. And if anybody is more on the IBC than the XRP side, you'll know that Secret has a very special L1 IBC token that enables you to mask data on chain. So we're looking to bring the two ecosystems together, but yet leverage the IBC side for enabling both ground control Lunarspace with the multi-sig, triple F 2FA strategy, but give our zones the ability to embed their seed in a masked approach to where there is no third party. It just basically takes the ground control set of keys and the zone set of keys to be able to unmask on chain, or rather release after multiple authentications back to that zone owner in a secret encrypted manner his key. So if they lost their key, their main set of keys to their zone, we have a mechanism in place that no one on the Lunarspace side or on the security side would have access to those original keys. Once we instantiate and we turn over ownership to that super admin, we won't have access to your zone, period. It will only be accessible through this PaaS service. So that's one of the reasons why we're focused on PaaS as one of our first UBZs, because we're going to use it ourselves to give that extra layer of safety and security for a zone owner, that if they're not comfortable storing their keys, they have a mechanism to do so. Very similar to what Ledger did. I thought that they definitely dropped the ball on how they deployed that strategy. But for a lot of people, having a third party hold their seed phrase is perfectly okay with them. Well, we in the Web3 decentralized world, we're not good with that. We don't want anyone else to have our keys. And if I lose my keys, do I have a way to retrieve them that's safe and secure? And that's what we're looking to do with PaaS. Privacy as a service. It's selfishly for our zones, but we want to be able to offer that as a UBZ. So if someone has a ton of different things going on and they want a place to store their seed phrases and feel like there's enough safety and security to do that through our TSS set of rails, then they would honor us by spinning up a PaaS UBZ zone and save their seed phrase. And there'll be a certain protocol for that. It won't be a lot, but it'll be, hey, you log in, you add another set of seed phrase, you use the zone, you'll earn HAMP. It won't be a lot, but it'll be something. And those are the type of rewards that we want everyone receiving as they use the utility.
And I imagine that's the tool that helps Web 2, like the Web 2 interface, not have to feel like they're interacting with Web 3, right? That's all handled on the back end as far as their seed. They don't even have to need to know about the seed phrase per se.
Yep, you got it. That's one of the key philosophies for bringing this these types of blockchain tools to Web 2.
Yeah, but be careful with that. Hold on, Henry. Be careful. You know, one thing I always want to be very clear with is a big part of decentralization and sovereignty and ownership of data, right? The point is when we instantiate that zone and we deliver that super admin's keys and that super admin receives the keys, we're hoping to have that pass be automatic for them if they choose to use it. If they have their own ability to save their keys and they're not worried about it, then again, in true IBC Web3 business acumen, we do not and will not have access to those keys without that zone owner's participation. So ground control is there for support. It's there to add more and more liquidity, and it's there to add more and more utility, and it's there for immediate tech support. But in terms of sovereignty, in terms of ownership, once we are fully developed, at least with alpha, you can rest assured we will not have access to those keys anywhere. And that's what pass represents.
Yeah, and exactly. So let me piggyback off of that. He mentioned Secret. So Secret Network is probably one of my favorite IBC projects that really got me really interested in utilizing a lot of these tools at a broader level, bringing it to Web 2. Um, with the Secret Network, you can wrap your token in Secret so that it doesn't really relay the sensitive information on chain that maybe an enterprise with a lot of use case and generating a lot of tokens, they might be a little bit weary of seeing some of the information on chain. So if they went through a protocol built like the Secret Network, it can mask all of that interaction. And yes, the number is transparent. The amount of some sort of transaction is transparent, but you're not seeing exactly who did it. So I think that's a key factor for bringing blockchain to Web 2. Um, is privacy. So that's why privacy is a service. So we have our 3FA security model, which is our soulbound tokens, our backend security methods, and the multi-sig. So if we combine that 3FA security model that we already have with our soulbound token to even get onto Zone's ecosystem in the first place, if you wrap that soulbound token in Secret, it creates a robust privacy as a service token that can be integrated in front of any platform. So this is something that I'm extremely excited about bringing Coreum smart tokens, Coreum soulbound tokens to IBC in that way with the Secret Network. And I can get into a lot of the technology behind it. One of the things that some developer or highly technical person might know from that is zero knowledge proof. So there's a lot of ZKP technology in our strategic partnerships with Space and Time decentralized database, and we need to use ZKPs to secure and support our Web 2 enterprises.
Yes, Henry, if I may. Sorry, Chris.
Yep.
I'm glad you mentioned space and time. So I've been doing a little digging with regards to that, and they're a very robust platform. I did see an article that says that their technology is one of the top 6 technology that is going to be coming dominate in 2024 and onwards with zero
Yep.
knowledge, technology. Could you delve a little bit more into how that incorporates with your build and the specific role they're going to play?
Okay.
Yeah,
So
let me take that one, Henry, real quick, and then I'll let you jump on. One of the significant advantages of being a strategic partner with Space and Time, and for the community that's listening, very early on in our development of this strategy, we connected with Space and Time. They looked at our project. We went and had dinner. We know the guys very well. They've approved us to be a value-added reseller, what would be considered here in the United States a VAR, right? A value-added reseller of their bandwidth or their storage. So The uniqueness of space and time is what's called proof of sequel. And the big element in terms of really mirroring and allowing our ecosystem to thrive and grow and be completely, nothing in this world is bulletproof, but as bulletproof as it possibly can is ZKP, zero knowledge proof, and then proof of sequel. So space and time represents the very free way that's going to enable us to onboard a tremendous amount of enterprise level Web 2 legacy builds. And just so if in your research, I'm sure you realize that Link was one of their big initial partners in terms of, I think, financially too. So having Link obviously really focus on EVM and bringing those rails and bringing the bandwidth of those rails to the world, and then having a company like Space and Time that's zeroing in and focusing on proof of SQL, which is a Microsoft database structure that, quite frankly, hundreds of millions of companies use around the world. That was my comment in our last announcement, that we are focused on that on-ramp of Web 2 capital and Web 2 infrastructure, and Space and Time represents that really challenging monster called SQL, and then being able to decentralize some of the key elements of the SQL database. So again, it's just another utility tool on an enterprise level that's going to enable us to bring over, not only bring over Web 2 organizations to our entire build, because I think they're going to like our UI better because it's going to be modern, sexy, and easy. But one of the things I didn't touch on yet, and this is something that my brother reminded me to bring up, was that our HAMP protocol and our liquidity strategy can sit on top of pre-existing Web 2 environments because we're an API company. So when you have big firms like law firms and call centers that have spent millions of dollars on their proprietary approach and what they're storing data locally or on a cloud or whatnot, we can come in and we can add value on top of their existing system. So we're not limited to just migrating an entire organization. We're an add-on for utility that we can bring those elements of compensation, because again, with our strategy, you have a corporate or organizational wallet structure where you can archive wallets when you terminate someone or if you let someone go from the group. All of that Web 2 operational utility in terms of payroll and wallets and all that is structurally organized within the zones. So we're trying to give little mini businesses in a box, if you will, or organizational tools in a box in a normal standard zone. And Space and Time is a huge element for us to achieve our goals. So I just wanted to throw that in there. We're very intimate with them. They've been incredibly supportive. Now, we haven't really spent a lot of time developing with them just yet because, as you guys know, it takes a little time when you're building something right. And one of the things that we really press ourselves on is TSS. So everything we're doing is double, triple checking in terms of safety and security. But go ahead, Henry, because you have some good insight on Space and Time as well.
Yeah, so just the one thing that we're currently waiting on them for is and they're all very public about it, is IBC. So this is something that I'm proud to have brought to their attention. Is the Cosmos Hub as an ecosystem would be something great to integrate into their processes, because they, like Patrick said, they're much more EVM and link based. But they're definitely looking at the Cosmos Hub and getting IBC in this, so that they can decentralize the SQL queries on their decentralized databases. So providing decentralized databases is huge, and that's why Link is so excited about it. If Timmy was on the call, he would love to talk about Link and Space and Time with this and why it's so exciting. But they the one roadblock is they're not currently integrated with IBC, but I know that that is on their roadmap ahead. So that is something that, as a strategic partnership, when that is fully developed and we've made sure that our TSS protocols are safe and secure, that's something that we're going to be integrating directly as a VAR service.
And let me just add one other element to that, gentlemen. What's super exciting about, this ecosystem and this incredibly exploding emerging market is the fact that in the future, one of our Lunarspace goals is to create the type of rails that can accommodate XRPL, IBC, and EVM. So we're looking at in the future, once we execute and we finally release our full version of zones, we have a couple projects, assets on chain, obviously with XRPL and a multi-sig enterprise escrow scenario for real assets, starting here in the United States. But we're very, very excited about working directly with Space and Time and starting to educate ourselves on Link, because I think Link is going to be a monster. I think they're really going to help a lot of organizations like ourselves be able to cross-chain connect multiple different sets of rails in a very safe, secure ZKP manner. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and in my digging, I did attend their AMA the other day, and I think Scott, who it is, and Catherine, they were they're very, very great with giving the information to the community and answering all the questions. And one of the things they did mention as well is sometime this year, I think in Q3, Q4, they're looking to do zero knowledge, where you could do like AI to develop dApps, fully
Yep.
zero knowledge. So I'm excited about that, and I can just see what is shaping up to be, with your partnership with Coreum, with everything that's playing in the picture. That's going to be an exciting future to be a part of. So yeah, I just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah, and that's really key. We want to implement those types of tooling into our zones. So we want to give our zones, our utility bonding zones, the capabilities of using all the cool tools from Coreum and Space and Time and IBC Secret, Akash Network. We love all that stuff. So yeah, we want to really bring kind of a hub to bring all of that together and let our zones benefit from those Web3 toolings and bring all of those awesome tools to abstract for Web2 users. I think that's the best case scenario for all of these communities together: Coreum, IBC, XRPL, Solo, Space and Time, all can work together in one cohesive relationship, and that would include a lot of the outer zone DAOs and um, uh, giving a lot of benefits to the intrazone DAOs from within that. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement when it comes to that stuff for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
articulate. Did you have any? And did you pick up on any? We, and by the way, we love Scott. Scott is hilarious, and he's such a real guy too. I'm sure you appreciated his candor. And let me tell you, talk about highbrow. Scott is a very, very seasoned, large Web2 data set guy who comes from a company called Teradata. And for you developers that have been around for a while, that's one of the largest data providers out there in terms of data sets. But yeah, Scott and those guys are very impressive. They're a project to keep an eye on for sure in conjunction with Link.
Well, that's definitely why I resonated with what you guys are building here. It does bring a large community together, and I'm not technically inclined, but I've always been the early adopter, the eager one to try new technology. So that's another reason why I was attracted to the Founders Zone. They're just being able to get to these tools as quick as possible and play with them, and I really love the team that's behind it and what your community focus has been. So I just know a lot of great things are happening soon, and I'm happy to be part of it. Articulate, Camo, if you have any questions, we'll maybe start opening up to the floor for others to ask questions. I know there's a lot here that many others probably have left with their own questions, and it helps everybody learn from their perspective. So
Yeah. So one question I just wanted to touch on was if you guys could dive a little bit more into DERP.
Well,
Yes.
DERP, the acronym stands for Decentralized Enterprise Resource Platform. So that term, you'll probably have noticed that we're not really pushing at the moment because in this world, in this community, there's not a lot of stake there. It's really predominantly my 25-year build for multiple different industries where I can come into an organization, replicate screens and process almost overnight, if you will, in the scheme of things, and begin to break down what would be friction in their workflow or potential gaps that are causing whatever the problem is or the lack of profits or whatnot. So DERP is really our Web 2 build from an enterprise perspective. And when you think about ERP versus CRM, because a lot of people throw those two terms out loosely. CRM and back in the day was really where you held your clients, your contacts, right? Contact relational management or client relational management. It's where you store your clients, you have your particular sales process, you store all your documents, you send your service agreements, so on and so forth. Where when you think of ERP, think of like Tesla. When you're manufacturing one of the world's most efficient and most advanced electrical cars, you have an unbelievable amount of information that you need to reside somewhere. Same with Boeing, right? Same with Starbucks, same with McDonald's. ERP really gives you the kind of bandwidth and depth to where you can track every aspect of your business, from accounting to supply chains to employee HR, all those wonderful things that most organizations have to spend, thousands of dollars monthly on 4 or 5 or 6 third-party applications, and they're just beating themselves up to bring all the data into one area. Our goal is to have one platform that can facilitate all those different aspects of a very large enterprise build, and not have to break out to a third party. Now, that being said, there are a lot of industries where there's multiple third parties that you have to work with. I'll give you an example in the DeFi or the TradFi. The traditional finance world, you're always pulling credit, whether it's on the business or on the individual. You want to see their payment record. So you need a third-party agency that you can tap into, request that credit reporting document, and then pull it back into your system and review it and make a logical decision whether you want to grant that particular borrower a loan or not. So we plan on bringing a lot of those processes from TradFi over to DeFi, and then create the rails to support that. But more importantly, create the ability for you to be your own bank. I mean, that's what we're doing here. We're becoming the bank. We're replacing the need for all of this legacy, over expensive, way too latency expensive. We're removing the friction from the monetary system, I think, with these builds. So anyway, enterprise DERP are for our Web 2 existing large builds for us to quickly come in, drop in a server. So it's a hybrid. We drop in physical hardware at that location, we replicate, we enhance, we build, we improve. And then when we turn it over, we give them the keys, and then we mirror that instance and we decentralize that to our 7 or 8 continents data storage centers, which Ali's helping us start to build. So understand we're very much, we have one full foot in the Web 2 world and one full foot in the Web 3 world, and our hand is reaching over to the Web 2 world saying, come on over, it's safe, the water's warm, you can trust us, and this is why. We have our Trinity of service, our TSS, we have ISO blockchain, so on and so forth. So I hope I answer. So DERP is really a Web 2 enterprise ecosystem that is the on-ramp to bring them over to Web 3 and enable us to kind of replicate all their systems first locally, and then we build all the UI on the Web 3 build, and that would just take, the amount of time depending on the amount of complexity, departments, divisions, roles, and responsibilities. So anyway, I love that kind of stuff. I love going into organizations and just being able to be a sounding board or a whiteboard or someone who just says, well, what about this? What about that? So that's a lot of what we do in our SaaS-based businesses. We like to help reduce friction, increase profitability.
Yeah, and that's where we've been focusing on for a long time, and then bringing in these blockchain tools to support and give benefit to the Web 2 traditional enterprise. In that sense, we thought was a great opportunity for adoption for Web 3. So where we've started, where we've rolled out our Web 3 tooling, we've wanted to give the Coreum community, because we haven't been all that aggressive in our marketing for our validators or even for our pre-sale yet. This stuff is really only for this Coreum community because of who all of you guys are. Um, you guys, like Chris said, you guys are always looking for these new cool utilities and how to use them a nice and easy level, and you guys are willing to try these new tools because that's where you guys know blockchain needs to go, and that's, I think, why you guys are also excited about the Coreum community in general in the first place. So we want to reward you guys with all of those first come first serve toolings, because it's all you like. You guys have the philosophy to support us. We all have the same approach towards where blockchain has to go. So
Well, and let me add to that, Henry, too, real quick, and we would love for anyone to come up and ask questions and challenge. But one of the things that we're excited about with the way that we're creating this ecosystem is we definitely have some consumer-facing strategies that we're going to launch, little side projects that we know the Web3 community, in terms of the projects that are starving for some help, some business acumen, maybe some consulting. So we're going to continue that Web2 SaaS approach, software as a service, that consultative approach, to help as many groups get off the ground as we can as well. The difference is we'll have our own utility set of rails to be able to support that infrastructure and reward up and coming projects. So we want to be an incubator. So a lot of what Pulsera is talking about, we love that project. We love what they're doing. We love the idea of DAX. Although I want to take a different approach. I want to have a set of zones, UBZ zones, that if someone says, hey, I've got this killer idea, I go in my menu of zones, UBZs, and I say, oh, this would be a perfect fit. And then we could do some customization. We can tweak it the way you want to tweak it, and then deploy it, and now you own it. And as long as you're using the zone and you're building HAMP protocol token rewards, you're funding your treasury liquidity pool, and you're growing with us. So that's very important for us to touch on. We will have a plethora of fun Web3 consumer-facing zones, but the core, the underpinnings is Lunarspace's ecosystem, with ground control helping the zones be successful.
And I'm glad you brought up Pulsar, because I've been listening in. It's really cool stuff what they're doing with the DAX. I think that a good place for us to start and to benefit the entire community, because I know a lot of you guys are also interested in Pulsar, as I am too. Along with Whelp, we want to do integrations into and just strategic partnerships with them that give the zones ecosystem users and our founders zones the ability to interact with their tokens, and like the DAX is a really cool thing that I think that we could integrate into our outer zone DAO, and have like a community approach towards Coreum that way. Yeah, we're excited about that too. So Patrick, I know
Hey,
you want to add to that.
No, I just was hoping, Chris, you can invite George up, because George is the jet fuel in our rocket right now. George is doing things that are unspeakable awesome. For instance, our reverse Dutch auction that he literally created within a week. That's literally our 8th smart token contract with Coreum, and he designed it exactly to spec. So we said, hey, we have this idea. We'd like to offer this pre-launch sale, but once the 200 tokens are bought up, then it automatically goes into phase 3. Once they're bought up, they go to phase 4 and phase 5. George and his team literally developed that smart contract probably about a week and a half. So if George, you got anything to say? Like I said, he is the jet fuel in our rocket, and we couldn't be any more appreciative of the hard work he's doing for us.
Well, that leads me to my next question. And George, I threw you an invite there. You're welcome to come up. So what's your guys, as Lunarspace, what's your challenges, or what piece of the puzzle is missing, or what way could the community contribute? And then the other thing, just so I don't forget, because I do want to let others come up and speak, is what uh well, I guess it's the same question. I'll just leave it at that. Is what pieces from the community could we maybe provide to help Lunarspace move forward?
Well, number one, I'm very, very happy and grateful to say that you're already doing it. I mean, you guys, your whole team, everybody, Ollie, Cosmo Haas, everyone that's been collaborating with us through DMs and just being overall, Ralphie and Leo. I mean, Hold and Flip, we can't wait to jump back on there with them. Or I'm not sure if we've done that, done their spaces yet, but we're super excited to connect with them again and continue just speaking our truth and our vision and mission. But the biggest friction that we have right now, and the reason why we are even doing a pre-sale, I struggled with this because I don't want to bring in any type of VC. We certainly haven't brought in any kind of seed. We're not beholden to anybody. We are self-funded. And my Web2 developer and I have had a 13-year relationship, and he's like a brother to me. We're building a strong relationship with George. He's becoming family. And we look at this community as a budding, community of like-minded professionals. So this pre-sale is the fundamental way for the community to help us with some initial revenue to do two things. One, bring on more developers to realize what we have documented on the runway to get developed and pushed ASAP. That's most important, is to bring on more help for George and more bodies that we can throw into utility. Because again, we're about utility. We just spent the last 7 months building the rails. Now we got to build the speed trains that help you effectuate what you're attempting to do with the UBZ, a utility bonding zone. But even more importantly, work quickly to our standard zone, because that's really when we can, when we launch alpha standard zone, then you can say that we are live on mainnet, by the way. The landing page, if you choose Leap and Coreum to purchase your $2,500 USD worth of Coreum, which is about 12,000 tokens at 19 cents. I think it just bumped to 20 cents a second ago on my bubbles. So 12,000 core, $2,500 USD. If you're Leap, if you click Leap, then when you end up on our central exchange, .lunarspace.io, your Leap wallet will automatically connect, and you can literally buy your bonding zone, your founder's bonding zone with core right directly. It's mainnet, it's live. So to answer your fundamental question, the second part of that conversation was, yes, this pre-sale would enable us to kind of kickstart and put more rocket juice into our, fuel into our rockets, and be able to bring on more developers and to be able to see our vision come to market quicker. So the pre-sale is the mechanism that's not only live. Our goal is to not ever see these tokens for this discounted price in the future ever again. And I think we have the brain power, the type of Web2 liquidity, and with the special feature sets in the smart token technology, we have the triggers to be able to peg that reward token to $1. But the goal ultimately is to see a slight appreciation every year and see that rise to $10, $15 like Link eventually, because of the uniqueness of the token and the fact that it can only be minted through protocols. The supply and demand factor, along with the impermanent loss on our LPs when we ultimately deploy them, are really well thought through. We're going to try to get deep in the docs on our next spaces when we're ready to kind of connect some of the dots behind the scenes and share with the people that really want to know how we're doing this.
And there's also a component to help grow too, from somewhat of an affiliate program too, to help source of revenue to your zones too. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So all founder bonding zones, you refer us anybody and they engage in any way, there's a 10% bounty on those zones, period. So as one of the advantages of getting in early and being a part of our founders community, number one, we're going to have an annual convention all around the world, relative to our data centers and in the countries that are supporting blockchain or are loyal to blockchain. We're going to be doing a lot of events ourselves. Remember, we're Web2 SaaS, so we love to do the fun stuff. So becoming a founders bonding zone is automatic access to any VIP stuff that we do on our expos and shows. We plan on having an annual event. We plan on having an annual charity event. I have a nonprofit here in the United States that we help people and with education in certain areas. We'll get into that later, but remember, we have zones. So one of the exciting other zones I'm talking about is an NGO zone or an NPO zone, a zone that's designed for some of these legal nonprofits that need some of that infrastructure on a spin up so they can organize and reward participation. So there's, like I said, there's so much Web2 utility that needs to be developed in Web3 with that same ease of use of Web2 philosophy is why we have this pre-sale. We're never hopefully going to see a LSX. Our goal is never to see that dip below $1. If not, we see slight appreciation, and we have all the levers in place to ensure that peg.
And so, as far as that goes, then there's no allocation to the team though, like no airdrop or anything like that coming up. It's just all going to be based on what's raised and then what's generated moving forward.
That's a great question, Chris. No, we don't do airdrops. It's nothing like an AMM. This is an L2 protocol reward token with a very unique ability, a very unique process for it to be minted. So supply and demand is very much in control. But to answer your question, no, we did allocate a certain amount of LSX to the foundation for grants. So we will grant, meaning if we don't feel the pre-sale is going to plan, then the foundation can step in and add some additional benefits. So we're trying to create ground control as the foundation, very much like Coreum had to approve our grant. It had to go through their grant foundation and get several approvals. We will be doing the same thing. So no airdrops in the traditional sense, because we're not a traditional, if you will, blockchain or crypto company. But we do have a predetermined chunk of LSX minted for granting, and those particular LSX will never see the secondary market, meaning we would never use that for anything other than to continue to build the ecosystem. So very different than an AMM.
Oh, that's great. Great answers. Thank you. Devon, I'll get you right up. George just stepped up. George, the floor is yours. Love to hear what you'd like to share. And Devon, we'll get to you right after George there.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, nothing. I think Patrick and Harry described it perfectly, described the project perfectly and what they aim to do. I always like to describe Lunarspace as a replacement to the centralized ERPs, CRMs, any software as a service basically we are getting, because you were just paying too much in Web2, right? So I use them on a daily basis, and the bills are scary for even a small team. So imagine large teams how much they pay. So I think ownership of data is always good in a decentralized manner, and I think this is what they are planning to do at Lunarspace. So I'm very excited. If anyone has any question, you can ask, but I think this is what I have to say.
Yeah, I would love to see anybody who has any technical questions with regards to the Coreum Smart Token feature set. I know that I've sat in a bunch of spaces and people kind of discuss it from a generic topical perspective. But if anyone has some deep questions on how unique the feature set is within Coreum, I would have to think George is probably one of the most educated and seasoned developer in that area. So anybody come up, ask George anything specific in terms of the really unique feature sets with Coreum. Sorry, Henry.
And also how we've utilized it and really beat it up and tested a lot of this stuff. George definitely is a leading mind for how we can utilize the smart token in an enterprise level environment. It's really cool stuff. I know he loves building on Coreum, and we love seeing what we can do with this token. So yeah, ask away. He's a treasure trove of info.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
Patrick, you brought up a great point there earlier when working with those tools, the ability to enable a tool without necessarily utilizing it and just turning it on later if needed. That's a key point that I think really should be highlighted with the technology.
Well, and what you'll see with a lot of these legacy changes, they're not going to be able to compete unless they completely reinvent themselves, sort of like what ETH did. Obviously that was a major shift for their strategy. And what came out of that is EVM. Boy, hey, that's beautiful. We love EVM. We're not particularly that fired up about ETH itself, but the rails we can't wait to sink our teeth in. One of my, and I'll just share a little personal note, one of my sons was almost a professional gamer. Mom and dad sat in and crushed his poor dreams. So don't hate me for that, but at least he had a wonderful high school experience. But anyway, he was so gifted at an early age at 11, 12. He won his first tournament at 13 against a bunch of 20-year-olds. But we're gonna have a lot of fun with MVP2 and gaming and gamification with our zone. So when I say we're gonna have a consumer facing side, we've got a lot of plans for some really fun engagement type stuff, and we do have some uniqueness in the zones that we're gonna spin up in terms of the gaming community. But anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I'll just tell you that he developed it was really cool. A few years ago, he developed a company called Battle Coins, and it was like a crypto gaming platform. Just him and his buddy. He was super young. So I'm gonna be working with him in the future because he's a super talented young mind in gaming, and I love all that stuff too. So we want Lunarspace to be a very fun place for people to engage with in the future and have easy Web3 tools. That's like the overall 20-year goal of Lunarspace. This is like me building a big world for all of this stuff, and we need to start here and getting enterprise level adoption and creating rails that we can use and utilize and have safe for consumers. Patrick, I know you want to jump on that.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. I'm open for questions. Anybody has anything they want to throw at us about HAMP or anything, we're down.
Devon, you've been waiting patiently, and you always have great questions. Go ahead.
Okay, my mic has went out every time Patrick has been speaking for like the last 5 minutes, so I'm not sure if you can hear me. I just need to do a quick mic check. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I got you.
Very good.
I
I
can
heard
hear you.
articulate. I heard articulate and Henry.
We can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me? Okay, I got it. Okay, it must be a little lag. Okay, so my question, I have a bunch of questions that I'm gonna just quick fire them at you. For one, are you going after SMEs and SMBs? Is that your target audience?
Oh yes, absolutely.
What about enterprise, large
Oh,
enterprises?
that's the derp in our brand, right? So you're not seeing a lot of terminology in terms of our website and branding with derp, but yeah, definitely. That's an area that I've spent the last probably 18, 19 years deep in. So love enterprise. Yeah, we actually started enterprise centric. We were derp. And then when we kind of realized that we need to be more of a utility API company for all of the need for Web3 that they're starving for, is where we came up with our URL D for decentralized zones.io, or .space. So zones are for the smaller. DERP is for your full enterprise, 15,000 employees, 7 continents, 17 different 17 regions with a ton of different roles and responsibilities. Yeah, so full enterprise ERP is kind of our what we're hoping to attract for the fee revenue in order to again build our bags in the foundation of liquidity that's bonded to perpetuity. So every time we charge fee income to a Web2 company, we're taking a portion of that fee to income, and we're staking it in either USDC, XRP, and Coreum into the foundation's liquidity pool, and that'll be locked to perpetuity as the pendulum lever to make sure that we stay pegged at $1 in terms of secondary market and so on. So I hope I answered that question, Devon.
That was a great response. Okay, so my next question is going to be, because you kind of went out on me when you were talking about CRMs, and I have a lot of experience and I've dealt with CRMs. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, so one of the hiccups that we have with CRMs, and we see this often time and time again, especially within the insurance space, is the inadequate data and the poor user adoption and the lack of resources that sometimes SMEs might actually have, right? So my question is, since it's on blockchain and everything is just right there and it's constantly updated via oracles or however, do you feel like the CRM platform that you're going to have is going to help integrate those kind of old traditional SMEs and SMBs to have a more user-friendly experience?
That is a fantastic question that I couldn't have asked you to tee up any better for me.
Nailed it.
It nailed it. Yeah. Great question. So you're right. So, most SMEs and companies in today's world spin up a cloud-based type CRM, some that are specifically built for an industry, some not, right? So you can spin up Salesforce as a CRM very easily, and it's functional. But most people that jump on these cloud-based CRMs, if you will, hate the experience because it wasn't really thought through from a user's perspective. So to answer your question, there's three elements when I think about Web3 CRM. One is the bucket, right? Where are you putting the data? Well, we're going to put our data with space and time because we trust them. And they'll have proof of SQL and ZKPs, right? For compute, we're leaning toward Akash, but they're quite probably not there yet in terms of compute power, right? And then front-end UI, one of the things that I actually enjoy the most about what I do is building functional CRMs for financial sales or insurance or law or whatnot. To be able to use a CRM properly, to me, there's two flavors, okay? There's a wizard approach for early adopters who are not very comfortable with the ecosystem or this new process or this new CRM that they're using. So I tend to develop in a very wizard way. Ask them questions, next screen, ask them questions, next screen. And the system onboards your staff relative to the process that you've designed for that new employee to use this CRM and to do their job appropriately. I tend to work with CRMs that have a field level functionality. So if they don't fill it out properly, the little thing pops up and says, you didn't do it right, redo it. Or you can't move forward until you filled that one field out because that one field will affect a whole other set of department or parts of the CRM, right? So a lot of what we deploy initially for people are a wizard approach CRM, contact relational management system. What happens after a while are power users. Power users come in and says, I'm sick and tired of the damn wizard. It takes me 7 different screens to fill out a dang application. Can you please help me out here? So what we do is we create what's called power screens for power users. They don't need to be handheld through the process. They know the process. Their eyes have become accustomed to the UI and where they need to put data. Well, a lot of these enterprise level CRMs, sometimes there's a lot of data to store. So you have a couple different additional flavors, a one-to-many table or just a static set of fields where you can only add, let's say, 3 referral partners versus a one-to-many table where you can add an unlimited amount of referral parties. So when it comes to the actual utilization and the user experience within any given CRM, whether it's small or enterprise, I think fundamentally we can bring a lot to the table in terms of if you're a real small SME, we could probably break that down over a phone call, spin you up and you're up and running, and then we can tweak as we go. If it's enterprise, then 99.99% of the time, they already have screens, they already have process, they have their 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 different third-party applications they have to utilize, i.e. QuickBooks, whatever. We start to eliminate those as we bring them in and eventually get down to their core third-party needs, and then their infrastructure has everything that they would need to store from a CRM perspective through our API structure. So CRM is an area that I absolutely love and from a passionate perspective because you can do a lot in terms of process onboarding and HR with those type of tools.
Okay, so quick question in response to that. So oftentimes independent contractors are often overlooked for their experience and their cost analysis. So does this CRM that you're offering, will it be able to aid in the process for independent contractors as well?
Man, Devon, you're like a brother from another mother. You're like in sync with me telepathically. I don't even know where you're coming up with these questions, but they could not be any more apropos. Yeah, so I built environments where you have in-house, right? People, employees, they're on the company dime. They get to see certain things, they get access to certain things, and then you want to be able to give access to independent contractors where they might not be privy to, let's say, in-house accounting. They don't even need to be able to access the HR portal because they're an independent contractor. They're literally a business outside of your business. So to answer your question, yes, it's very employed infrastructure. We trust everyone who authenticates into the system. But hey, I got this set of contractors out there that I need to give access to, and I need them to report to me, or I need to pay them through the wallet, or I need to be able to track invoices. Yes, it's very, very well built for that third party, whether it's a client, an independent contractor, or even your own employees.
Perfect. Okay, because I swear people often overlook independent contractors, so I'm glad you have that in mind already. I do
Well, I'll
have
take
two
it
other
one
questions.
step.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead, Devon.
No, go
Well,
ahead. I want to hear what you say.
just to add to that, what makes HAMP, the protocol, so unique, again, this is a 20-year actively used thought process, or let's say algorithm, that my brothers and I have used in growing and incubating certain sales environments and organizations. So it's not some idea that I came up with, sitting on the beach having a Mai Tai. It's something that we've actively deployed and used in the past in a very manual way that cost a lot of money, because you'd have to have 2 or 3 admin assistants to accumulate all the data points from all the different vectors, right? So HAMP will give every SME, every large institution, an unlimited ability to define an individual's role within that responsibility. And what you'll see with CRM is, tied to a role and responsibility, the code, the data, the screen should coincide with that person's job, in other words. So we've built it. Let me give you an example in a sales environment. So we have different layers of leadership. So it's also built with a leadership hierarchy. Obviously, I've built my systems on meritocracy. I don't even want to get into that other nonsense, but the fact of the matter is, the code is non-emotional. That's what I love about code. It doesn't fight, doesn't argue. It just does what it's supposed to do. And when you build systems that support meritocracy, sorry, my tongue's getting a little tired, but you're able to present one's work on a dashboard that's clearly defined and rate them with their colleagues, it creates an environment of competition and success versus a popularity contest. But anyway, you had 2 more questions. Hopefully I was able to add a little bit more
No,
to
that
that.
was perfect. That was perfect. I appreciate that.
That's
The other
also
question,
where HAMP ties in. Sorry,
mm-hmm.
just wanted to add that's also exactly where HAMP ties in.
And that was going
That's
to be my next question, which is HAMP. So, from my understanding, it's every time a employee accomplishes a goal, a HAMP token is generated. Is that correct? Do I have that correct?
You're on the right path. So for most of us, we've played around with that little spelling AI model called Grammarly. And if you haven't, I highly recommend you do. It's an awesome little tool, because I'm a horrible speller. I like numbers. But one of the things that Henry is going to head up on is our LLMs, our large language model, AI zone-based HAMP bots. And like Grammarly, as you use the UI and you use the system as it relates to your role and responsibility, yes, it will ledger each activity. When you set up that role within HAMP's dashboard, so you're the super admin, you're running your SME, you're setting up your roles and responsibility. Well, hey, first I better hit the front desk girl because she's the first one that showed up. We haven't opened the doors yet. So you set her role up. She gets, every time she answers the phone, she gets a HAMP point. Every time she answers the voicemail, she gets a HAMP point. Every time she attaches a mail document, she scans it and attaches it, she gets a HAMP point. So what HAMP is fundamentally based on is the operator's goal time horizon. So in financial sales, we would build most things on a daily basis. Hey, if you did X, Y, and Z on a daily basis, you're going to probably be successful. So that HAMP milestone goal was set for a 24-hour period. So the next day it would reset. Your HAMP number would be there, but it would reset for that day. But let's say you only earned 87 HAMP points. The minute you came in to log in the next morning and you accumulated those 13 points to make 100 points, a HAMP message would be sent to the zone factory. The zone factory takes those 100 HAMPs and it will convert it into 1 LSX. So think of a HAMP as a penny and think of the LSX as $1. So for SMEs, you can create pretty simple HAMP protocols. But if there's not enough activity, the dynamic nature of HAMP will say, hey, it's a front desk person. You can't simply just mint 10 LSX a day because there's not enough human activity in order to generate that type of revenue. So you would make that milestone goal for a front desk girl a week. So at the end of the week, if she did her job, she would earn X amount of HAMP, and that would convert into X amount of LSX. And all that will be regulated through the algorithm of the HAMP protocol. And that HAMP protocol will be a dashboard type wizard, if you will, that will have some best practices built into it. So if you're a newer operator, let's say you're young, you're starting your new company, and you're setting up your sales team, there'll be little videos and some best practices hints to where, hey, you might want to create 5 different sales stages. 1 being a new lead, 2 being you've contacted, 3 you've got a contract out, 4 is you got the contract back, 5 is it's in registration, 6 it's in accounting, and 7 now it's in production, right? So we try to bring that type of specificity into these builds. Even if you're a small group, it doesn't matter. But if you're an enterprise group, most of the time you have your processes baked in, you have your screens, you have your reports. That's when we could do a deep dive and start to remove friction and increase profitability on an enterprise side. But on the small side, we're going to be wizard based to be able to guide people through that HAMP protocol. But it's going to be extremely dynamic. It's going to be extremely thick, and it's going to be able to accommodate an enterprise type organization that, like I said, is, let's say, on 9 continents, has 27,000 employees, 17 regions, so on and so forth, all the way down to your mom and pop coffee shop, in the Hamptons that maybe have 4 employees.
Man, what you just said was so amazing, and I'm trying not to hog all the time because I have so many questions just based off what you just said right there. But man, that's amazing. I definitely have so many ideas based off what you could do with that alone. But my last question, I guess I was going to ask is, man, you just made me forget with the way you just responded to that.
You got all the time you need, Devon. Just go ahead, ask whatever you want. The floor is yours.
My question, I can't remember honestly what my question was. That with the way he just responded, it just fired my mind of so many different things you could do.
No, Devon, you have some amazing questions, buddy. Like I said, hey, 24/7 DM us. You know, your type of insight. Number one, I think just even having been in a few spaces and hearing your questions, there's no doubt we want to have a relationship with you, Devon. You're the type of community member that I think can bring a ton of value in what we're doing. And also we love fresh perspectives. We want to be challenged. We don't mind conflict. I mean, Henry and I go at it every once in a while, and 2 sharp edges going against each other will ultimately create a sharper knife. So fantastic questions. Okay, cool.
I remember the question now. So how you just described that, for one, payroll is the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear that. Are you transitioning, or do you see the Lunarspace transitioning to be offering a payment provider service as well to kind of get them to kind of merge in correctly to Web3? Can you offer a payment provider service as well?
Oh, absolutely. The fundamental underpinnings, and I'll share with you what Henry was sharing earlier on. We started the entire project building on Juno, a token-gated authentication over into a MSE Web 2 environment, right? So Web 3 dApp into a Web 2, let's say Microsoft Azure server. That was our first build, and diving into IBC and just loving it, right? And through that process, we kind of glommed onto Kepler, because Kepler is an enterprise level wallet structure. I feel they're good, and they're solid, and they're careful on who they allow on their ecosystem. So we were 100% Kepler. Now we're actually, believe it or not, we're leaning more toward Leap, but Kepler is great. So one of the things that we wanted to do with our soulbound token was to create wallets based on that soulbound token. That way, intra-zone, you have the ability, when you issue a login to a user, and you know how that is in most Microsoft ecosystems, right? You go to the primary domain controller, you create a user. Back in 10 years ago, you go to your Exchange server, you'd add the email, which was typically your network, user ID, so on and so forth, all that. So, oh man, my gray hairs are kicking in.
SPT, how we built
SPT.
the SPT out.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Devon, great question. So our initial thought process was, not only will we have a soulbound token that identifies that zone, but now we can rip and fractionalize that SPT into wallets. So right off the bat, we created a corporate or a way to compensate via crypto and USDC within the zone relative to how a user would just simply log in. When they log in, that's their wallet that the zone controls. So if that individual private person leaves the organization, you archive that wallet, and you always have the history of that wallet's activity, but you as a zone control and own your own wallet structure. Therefore, it's a beautiful complement for payroll because you now can compensate either through a third-party payroll system like ADP or Paychex here in the States where you just API out, but you already have the data because you're accounting for it in your own system and you're just pushing to payroll so they can execute whatever, what's already, let's say a pre-existing ADP or Paychex, for a larger company, it's already set. They don't want to mess with it. They just want to be able to push and pull data from that data set. That will be built into our zones as well. But fundamentally, the way that we're structuring these zones, when you go to add a user, you're adding a user and a wallet address, and therefore that particular user on their dashboard will be able to use that wallet as a way to receive their income, and then they can transfer it out to their bank, auto deposit it through, kick it over to Uphold, and then do a instant deposit. But we're going to work on a lot of that friction from the Web3 wallet world into the fiat US, banking world, the traditional TradFi. But great question. And absolutely, our user feature set within a zone is inherently a way to compensate your inner zone through the user's wallet on the dashboard.
That would also cut costs for SMEs as well, because I'm assuming you guys can do instant payments as well, correct? Since it's a 24-hour interval. Okay, great.
And that's the beauty of HAMP. You might have team members all over the world, right? And obviously everything's based on UTC. One of the biggest challenges in the enterprise world, or anybody who's developing in the world, a global system, is just that whole time factoring with UTC. And then here in the States, we actually have some people who honor daylight savings, some don't, most do because it's law or whatever. But understand that we have a deep understanding of what we need to do to make the utility easy to use, but be so robust that you can either accordion wizard approach for adoption. So you walk them through the process of setting up a payroll by using your wallets in your dashboard as a super admin, or let's say you're head of HR. So you're given an admin supervisory user role, and under that user role, you unleash the back-end accounting department so they can facilitate payroll and HR, and they see everyone's private HR files. So to answer your question, there's a lot of process and 25 years of business acumen built into our build when we release zones.
I want to go back to what you were talking about with points, because I spent a lot of time in sales, and oftentimes companies try to incentivize via points to maybe airline points or a company trip to Hawaii or something like that with the points. But it's very hard to collect on those points at the end of the year. I don't know if it's whether it's for tax write-off reasons or things of that nature. But these points, to make it more efficient and to convert for, I guess, the salesmen that earned those points, could you make a token that would just essentially go to a wallet that they convert with ease?
Oh, you just described HAMP.
Oh, that would be HAMP.
Oh,
What
absolutely.
if the company wanted to have a separate token from HAMP? Could that be wrapped in a smart token, or created a token that is specifically for that SME for them to utilize for their employees?
I think George's ears are buzzing, because that's a conversation George and I had about 3 months ago when we were when he was developing the HAMP smart contract. To answer your question, George told me, yes, we can white label what would be considered a white labeled HAMP token. So if you were McDonald's and you wanted those reward tokens to be McDonald reward tokens, right, we could white label the reward token, but the LSX liquidity token is the reason why we're all on this call, and the reason why we're having this pre-sales to build the foundation of liquidity, so that this reward system is immediate. It's dynamic. Now, for new zones, we're going to have at least 4 to 6 month lockup period. So they build the liquidity, so their tide rises. So by the time the HAMP protocol is firing off at all levels, there's enough LSX liquidity in their pool to be able to compensate and pull out. So there is some algorithms built into the smart contracts relative to the size of the zone, so that a zone can't just go rogue and start printing a bunch of freaking HAMP. We have a lot of quality control and triggers that would prevent a protocol from going wild, in other words. But I hope I answered that question.
So if the company says, hypothetically, the company says in order for you to get 100 points, you have to make 10 sales that month. It would be written into the smart contract, and it would just, that's how the points would be transferred.
It would actually be created in the protocol, in the HAMP protocol itself. So the first thing, the first series of questions in the wizard of creating a protocol, a position protocol for a salesperson, for the longer enterprise sales where you can, it might take 6, 7, 8 months to sell a commercial property, or it might take a year and a half to sell a big chunk of VC or whatnot. That's where the monthly goal set would be. The milestone would be probably a monthly milestone. But for more of your traditional TradFi, call centers where everyone logs in on a daily basis, they're all competing. I find that putting a daily goal is a better practice than a weekly goal, because every single day you want to end the day on a good note. You go to your dashboard, you look at the number of points you hit. And the way that we've designed the HAMP protocol, it's going to be very easy for the operator to look at some of those KPMs, those key performance metrics, and understand if someone's just bumping a key 1,000 times to try to earn points. The system's going to say, you can't do that. You're outside everyone else by 10%. What are you doing? Type of engagement, and giving the zone owner control to turn those alerts on or off. So we're trying to give complete autonomy to the zone owner on how he wants to build his protocols, with some guardrails in play. And then overall, algorithmically, if any zone is trying to execute HAMP in a way that would be flooding the marketplace with LSX, we will see that within our own dashboards and be able to adjust HAMP in a way to prevent any type of slippage. In other words, over minting of LSX by abusing the HAMP protocol. I hope that answered the question. But HAMP is going to be a set of code, a protocol that can sit on top of existing ecosystems, but certainly baked into all the zones that we build.
Oh, okay, I got it. I definitely would like. I just followed you, and Patrick, Henry. I just sent you a message because I did put my email in for the whitelist. I never got the email, so I just messaged you as well, and I just followed you, Patrick. I would definitely love to continue to talk more in the future. I have so many ideas.
Devon, if you could check real quick, if you could check your junk mail, just real quick, your spam or junk, just to see if it's in there.
Just so you know, I sent I only had the fire send out for phase 1. So if you were a phase 1, you got the email. I probably maybe I didn't emphasize that enough. The rest of the emails are coming this week for any other
I
token allotment
believe
phase.
I was phase 1, but I'm also not sure. So I will check again my junk mail
I'll
just to
take a
make
look,
sure.
and I'll
Yeah.
be in contact with you for sure. I'll take a look at that.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me up as well.
Man,
Yeah, no worries. Great questions, man.
Yeah, awesome, Devon. We really appreciate that kind of specificity in these spaces, because I think that's what some people are hungry for. They want to know, like, brass tacks, what the hell is this thing, and can I use it, and will it benefit me and my team or my group? And ultimately, we hope to leave a mental footprint of, that in the next 90 to 3 to 4 months, we're going to be spinning out these utility bonding zones that are utility specific. And we're looking for the community to help us beat it up, test them, use them, try them, give us your insight. And that's where the outer DAO comes in, because your feedback will be so valuable. And that's where the foundation's grant comes in, because we want to reward our founder bonding zones every way we can. If we're constantly throwing value at you, if we're constantly throwing tokens at you, we hope to get that reciprocation in your attention and your support. And most importantly, your referrals. Those bounties are real. You bring me an enterprise zone, and some of these zones can be $250,000 up front, and you would make a $25,000 bounty fee, because that's what we're doing for founder bonding zones. You bring us even a small mom and pop shop, you're going to be earning rewards as soon as that zone instantiates, and when we turn the keys over to that owner, you start making that bounty. So just to throw that out there, and thank you.
Also, I wanted to ask, have you been in any talks with any SMEs, SMBs, or enterprises to implement the solutions?
I've got about 7 derp zones just waiting for us to get a little bit further. We're probably dropping a derp zone in next week for a local finance company that's helping people. So we're already selling Web 2. We're being, how shall I say, close to the vest. We really haven't marketed it at all. I mean, a lot of the people that have known me for the past 30 years, because I've been in the same location, know what I'm building. Some are reaching out. Some want HAMP because they already have their pre-existing system. Some want a whole rebuild. So to answer your question, yeah, we've got right now in queue probably 7 derp zones. Now, remember, most of our derp zones, the minimum fee for a small 10-seat enterprise is 15 grand. Most of them will be about 50,000 to 45,000. And the reason why it's that amount of money, because number one, they're used to paying that. Number two, I'll give you an example, $15,000 regular 10-seat derp zone. 5,000 will go to their bonding pool. So we literally take some of our fee income and we establish their liquidity pool right off the bat. We take the other 5,000 and we use it as fee income to customize and develop their local zone. And then the other 5,000 goes to the foundational bonding zone, to the gap, right, which is our global foundation. So we're always adding liquidity as we onboard Web 2 derps into the Web 3 treasury, if you will. Hopefully that answered your question. But yeah,
that was amazing.
We got about 7 ready to go.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree. It is amazing. And Devon, thanks for coming up again, asking questions. Anybody else wants to come up, throw up a request? The teams made themselves available to us for as long as it takes. We could leave no stone unturned here. So
the only thing I would add. Oh, hey, Ollie.
Yeah, please. It's hard for me, to catch up, Patrick, sometimes, so I'll take this time and ask him, is it possible to see you in 4 months from now in Saudi Arabia, Patrick?
Well, you definitely referred me to those 2 shows. I've reached out via Telegram to one, and I haven't had time to get back into our DM to do a follow-up, but one of my goals is to come out and see you in the next 3 to 6 months, and hopefully I can knock 2 birds out of the sky with one stone, and not only meet you, but attend one of those events so that we can sit down and really articulate what we want to do together in Saudi. But we are definitely on our roadmap, carving out Saudi Arabia as one of our endpoints this year for sure. So I can't wait to meet you, buddy. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and love the fact that you shared your family. I shared my family in the DMs. And hey, guys, we're a part of this community. We love this community, and we're open. We are not that Web 2 corporate nonsense. We're all about love and gratitude and forgiveness and sharing. So reach out to us. If you got a project that you're thinking about, Ali's got a couple projects that I'm super fired up. He's talking about an Uber type zone. He's talking about a couple different ideas. So those are the kind of projects that we would not only like to help build, but hopefully we can help grant with our foundation as we start to bring over some of that Web 2 capital. And something tells me that might be happening sooner rather than later. But anyway, can't wait to meet you, Ollie. That's on the roadmap for sure.
Thank you so much.
yeah, that's been one of the real blessings about the relationship we've had since joining the Founders Zone there, Patrick and Henry, is you guys have made it clear how willing you're there to help us grow and build what we have, what our vision is, and you certainly have a lot of resources that we certainly didn't know how we would ever access and utilize, and we really appreciate that part of it. It's invaluable. So
Yeah, we want to do that for everybody. Obviously, all of these founder zones, we want to give them the same opportunities to build and to have fun in this ecosystem that we've been granted. And I did want to kind of maybe open the floor for a little bit of future LSX talk, because I know that people getting their LSX bags is awesome. You guys probably want to hear about some of the future plans. With because I think we've talked about HAMP interplaying with LSX, and if there are any questions about how some of that stuff works, as well as some of the future plans for LSX when it comes to assets on chain or anything like that? Because I know Patrick can talk for hours about that stuff.
Well, since you teed me up, I don't mind partaking. So, one of the things that in my past that I'm super passionate about is real estate, commercial, industrial, residential real estate here in the United States. I've always owned a real estate company for about 30 years. And so I have a very intimate, deep level knowledge of how things work here in the States. Now, every country, every municipality, as a matter of fact, every state here in the United States have their own Department of Real Estate set of rules and guidelines. What I'm excited about is to get assets on chain where we can eliminate all that friction in terms of one person selling their property to another person. So a big part of our MVP2, once we have our DERP and our zones fully launched and we're in full V1 version and rocking and rolling, we do have an MVP2. We're starting to document it, which will be assets on chain with XRPL. And this is where the Lunarspace L1 is going to come into place. We'll be at a level where we can start to develop our L1, take our time, where we want to bring EVM, IBC, and XRPL together, obviously using Coreum as a significant part of the underpinnings. But what we're talking about is real enterprise level assets on chain with a multi-sig escrow, multi-sig escrow. But in terms of the process and the screens, I've already built escrow companies, even premise-based escrow companies. I've built a lending platform and I've owned real estate companies. So for me, I'm going to bring a lot of that knowledge to the Web3 blockchain world. And everybody's running out there and starting to scream, assets on chain, blockchain. You got Larry Fink from BlackRock. You got Blackstone liquidating a lot of their residential property right now. You have a lot of tectonic shifts going on globally, economically. And I've been stung by some of these fluctuations and some of the manipulation of currency in my career. So I have a couple deep wounds, scars, if you will, from the financial markets, certainly the petro fiat dollar being as manipulated as it is. What I love about our industry is we deal in truth, right? ZKP is truth. Blockchain is truth. We deal in truth. And a big part of our MVP2 is to help people remove most of the friction when they want to sell their real asset online and have all the safety and security through our TSS, our trinity of safety and security, but with an XRPL type of AMM to get the project going. But eventually we'll probably come up with some type of soul-bound token with a special feature set that converts it into an NFT when that property owner is ready to sell the property. It could be adopted into an escrow company where both parties have to facilitate a laundry list of things. Once the laundry list of things are signed off, then there will be a multi-sig component and then a third arbiter that would sign off and ensure and underwrite that both parties facilitated their roles and responsibilities, and they would actually insure it, much like a title insurance or a law firm would do here in the United States. You can't transfer real property here in the United States without a law firm, period, right? Because most lenders require some type of insurance to ensure that the transfer of ownership is done so that if anything pops up in the future, you have a policy to rely on and say, well, wait a minute, you didn't find that, you didn't see that, now it's your responsibility to pay for that thing that's on this piece of property or this vehicle or this, whatever, this lien on this chunk of gold. So not to go too long-winded, but we're not going to stop with our utility build. We've got a much bigger build right behind this, and all these founding bonding zone participants are going to have first access to everything we do in that MVP2. But that's the real enterprise build that we're excited about. This is more B2C, small, SMEs, SB, small business, utility. We have DERP for the big guys, but the MVP2 is really where we're going to make a mark, I think, globally on helping people transfer real assets on chain.
And a lot of that is going to be coming from your LSX and from your DPass SBTs that every zone automatically gets and has to log in through. So there's going to be a lot of these functionalities that we're going to add to the SBTs that are extremely beneficial in the long run for adding these multi-sig and 3FA approaches to a lot of enterprise level transactions. So that's one of the philosophies why we love SBTs for that type of data storage, and then facilitation of some sort of high level sale like that can go through and be secured through that method. So that's something that we have already built the rails for. Now we are just building the entire network to facilitate that.
Now, Henry, I just read someone asked a really good question. Epic Creations asked, why make the barrier to entry so high? And that's a great question. If you're referring to me throwing out 15,000 and 50,000 as an entry point from our old Web 2 traditional SaaS-based service,
Sorry, Patrick.
those would be.
I'm sorry. They were talking about the LSX for the whitelist.
Sorry. Just we because of the sense of urgency. Sorry. Okay. So I misunderstood the question. I thought it was more of a global question. No, just for phase one, 2,500, because we need to move quickly, and we wanted to see who was really committed, in terms of an early adoption at 2,500, because that's about how much it took for us to, to spin up validators or whatnot, in a sense. So we felt that was, you put value in, you're going to be more engaged. So we didn't want to make it too low. That's why we did the phases. 25, I think it goes to 15. What does it go to? 25 or 40% off, 2,500 minimum.
Yeah,
I'm
then
sorry.
it's 1,500, then 1,000, then 500. But I would just say, because a lot of these funds are also splitting to secure the ecosystem. So the same kind of third method, you guys are we're locking up some of the tokens and putting the other amount in the bonding zone to spin up more and to give value to HAMP. So we do need to kind of start these. We wanted to, like Patrick said, see who would be the most engaged with something like this, because it is it's a full system of a protocol. So we need tokens out there facilitating it. We're gonna get down to the level where the threshold is a lot easier to get in. But just at this start, with the sense of urgency, we want to spin up these zones and have them start to give real value to the ecosystem.
Yeah, and to me, obviously airdrops are great for AMMs. It's great for engagement. It's great for all types of reasons. But we because we're not an AMM. We're not looking to do those types of things. In thinking of this pre-sale launch, actually, my brother suggested a Dutch auction, and I thought that was a great idea. So we just reversed it, meaning, with most Dutch auctions, you start low and you just let people bid until the final time where no one's bidding, and there's your price. We wanted to say, okay, hey, we're looking for a group of people that really, really want to be a part of this founding bonding zone for this first 200,000, and then make it a little easier for the next 300,000, and then wrap it up with a more easier low cost of entry into the last two phases. Because again, building a large community is so important to us, and because we'll never there's a finite amount of LSX in the foundation. Once this strategy is completed, there will be no way to purchase LSX except for the secondary market, and those LSX are only going to be minted from a protocol-based zone.
Right on, guys. Ralphie from the Flippin' Hodl podcast every Tuesday and Thursday with Leo, Core Apes coming up.
Well, what's up? What's up, man? I've been tuning in, but I woke up today and decided to switch up my whole office and give a new vibe to the new year. Love to hear everything that's going on, and just something that Henry and Patrick were relating to when it comes to Devon. Devon, man, shout out to you, bro. You've been asking some questions, some things that I didn't even think about. And after COVID, I actually started. I got my insurance license, and I started working with a CRM based referral system. And I didn't even think to ask that question. So I appreciate you coming up and asking those questions. I've seen you evolve within the Coreum space from when you first got in here. You started asking questions. That's why I gave you a shout out the other day, man. You've been amazing for the community, and you're asking questions that we didn't even know we wanted to ask. So that's super super dope. But yeah, man, just tuning in and showing support to the builders.
Well, Ralphie, that's appreciated, buddy. I love hearing you pop on and just set tone, man. You got that energy. You have an infectious energy, you and Leo. So, we love these spaces. We will always be or try to be on your guys' spaces and reciprocate because there's just so much love in this community and it's awesome. And we're all about building utility and about building things that people want to use. And just the love and support is amazing. So Ralphie, thanks for all that, bud.
Yeah, and I just want to say to Devon, that was how Ralphie just said it is perfect. You tee up questions that really allow us to get into the weeds about this stuff, because the real value of our protocol, of our ecosystem, is HAMP, and that is a huge, robust, and dynamic approach to rewarding ecosystems and giving a leaderboard and creating a competitive and but yet friendly environment where employees and people are rewarded. So that's a huge philosophy for us. So yeah, Devon, I love that question because it lets us get deep onto what actually matters and what's going to give true value to LSX and to the broader ecosystem.
I really appreciate both of you guys saying that. Appreciate it a lot, man. Thank you.
Of course. You know what? We're taking an opportunity to pass a few flowers here. I think the man that deserves the biggest flowers is also Chris, man. He's allowing us. Not only does he put up education every single day while working a full job, it's crazy how much he's put into the Coreum community, how he's built his YouTube channel, these podcasts, and he could easily say, like, look, I'm not going to support anybody else. I'm going to run my own validator. I'm going to run these podcasts. It's all about us. And he's the complete opposite. Like, it's truly community first. And
Yep.
that's so rare to see in this space.
Yeah,
So
that's
shout
why
out to
we
you,
wanted.
Chris.
Yeah, that's why we love supporting you guys and offering this stuff to you guys first, because it's going to be all of this stuff except for a token sale like this will be offered to the public, but we want to give you guys first access to all of it and at a discount too. That's all a part of being a founder zone. So
Well, there's that Ralphie energy. Great point, Ralph. I tell you, man, Chris has been fantastic. The first time I saw one of his first videos was months ago, and I looked over at Henry. I'm like, dang, Chris is going deep, and I've learned from Chris, and that's one of the most beautiful things about this computer. And I've learned things from Ralphie and Leo. When you just pay attention and listen, I mean, the type of questions Devon's asking, I feel like this whole emerging market is so hungry for real utility that people want to use in their day to day, that I think we're positioned in a great place. And with guys like you guys, you're the wind under our wings, man. We're ready to rock and roll and just love the energy and just cannot thank Chris and Articulate and the entire team, along with Leo and Ralphie, the support, and Ali and everybody that's on right now. So I just wanted to give everybody a shout out and thanks. And thanks, Ralphie, for the kind words too. And Chris, you're a man.
I
Beautiful.
appreciate the kind words, guys. And I said the other day that Bob and Rez have certainly inspired a powerful community, and we're all building a great foundation together for all of our own ways of contributing to this space. So it's to me a very powerful foundation that's going to be something amazing in a couple of years for sure.
And if there's no other questions, I'll just wrap it up this way. Anybody who fills out that landing page whitelist, regardless of what goes down, we're going to honor always first. From an integral perspective, we're going to respect and honor you. So if you want to be in and for whatever reason you didn't get the email or this or that or the other, that's why we're not an airdrop company. We're a grant company. Just the same way Coreum honored us with that grant to help us build our 7 contracts, our initial set of rails. We want to do the same thing for the community. So even like Coreum Concept, your guys' DAO, when we customize that, we're picking up that tab from the foundation because you guys will help us articulate exactly what you guys want. And then we expound on that and we continue to improve through the outer signaling DAO, and we build upon what we create for you guys. Now, here's another thing too. I'm very, very respectful of proprietary process. If a zone comes to us and says, we don't want our process shared with anyone, well, how could we? It's your zone. Well, you're customizing it. Yeah, but it's your zone. If you sign a confidentiality, if you checkbox, you want no one to know your process, no one will ever see your process, nor would we ever share it, nor could we even access it. So unlike Salesforce, which is the 900-pound gorilla out there for global CRM, if you really read their fine print, they have access to what you build. We are the counter to that. We will respect every zone's proprietary, unique process or data. And because of the nature of blockchain and keys, no one can get there unless they choose to give them up.
So in the Web 2 space, what would be the market size that you're after, and at the same time, who else is building, or what would be your competitor building what you guys are trying to build here?
Well, again, that's a great question. I think from the DERP perspective, which is really going to enable us to migrate existing infrastructure, especially companies that might be having a challenge or breakdown, there's always that part of growth in an organization where things start to slip through the cracks. So to me, that is called that friction within business, right? And friction only equivalates to lack of profits or challenge where people bounce because they're just so sick and tired of the system, or nothing's getting done and they have no way of knowing, and this and that and the other. So I would say, SMEs, our sweet spot are 10 to 150 employees. That's always been a nice little sweet spot for us, because they're large enough to appreciate the investment in their own system, and a lot of times there are significant gaps to be resolved, and that's where we can kind of come in and solve those gaps. But for us, once we get the regular zone utility bonding, the UBZs up and running, it'll be for anybody in any size. You'll just spin it up. It'll be all automated. I mean, that's what I'm excited about. So a lot of this pre-sales to make spinning up a UBZ, a utility bonding zone, very seamless and easy to do, and then have a wizard approach in terms of setting that utility up.
Let me just piggyback off that, because I've been trying to really think of like who the competition for the Web 2 side is, and it would just be it'd be the big dogs. The CRM space has kind of gone more towards AI tools. They've kind of skipped blockchain because of the volatility of the token. That's where I think we've kind of come in and utilize and created a system that can utilize blockchain to effectuate some of these processes for businesses, when they kind of just have all just gravitated towards AI, and we're building AI tools too on top of that to support that evolution. Obviously, tech companies constantly have to build tools that evolve, so we're doing that too. But we've not forgotten about the blockchain community. We think that there's a huge role for blockchain in this stuff. So it's hard for me to think of a direct competition from Web 2 when it comes to that. But when it comes to like API integrations, there's a few good companies out there that have kind of template builds that you can put out on top of stuff, but none of them offer a blockchain reward system and blockchain security and 3FA process. So
Yeah, I think Henry, you said it right. I think the big guys like HubSpot, right, Discord, Salesforce, those are very broad, big platforms that a lot of people use. We definitely are going to have a Discord type of messaging board within our zones for the inner zone. But I think we don't really, there are big projects out there like HBAR. I know that I look at their board, they all come from the enterprise world. There are some big projects out there working really hard because they know, the amount of migration that has to occur. So that's why competition's good. We need as much adoption as humanly possible. So we never look at other builds as competition. A lot of the things Pulsera is doing, we will inherently do through our bonding pools, liquidity pools, relays, and our own DEX. And we're definitely going to have utility bonding zones where you can spin up your own AMM, you can spin up your own project, your own DApp. We're going to be doing a lot of those things. And that's great. There should be thousands of companies helping people come over to the right side, which is the blockchain Web3 world, which is where I think we're literally at lightning speed heading into. So, yeah, the demographic's huge. I mean, you figure there's 300 million organizations, at the end. Last time I did my own research back at the end of 2022, there were 315 million organizations worldwide that would fit our demographics. And then I looked at the enterprise side, there's 76,000 internationally recognized organizations that are on the Microsoft ecosystem that have more than 3 offices on more than so many continents. So just 76,000 enterprise organizations out there. If we could just hit 1% of that and then capture 0.01% of the entire global ecosystem, we would buckle. So what I'm saying is that's why we're not marketing, we're not pushing it, we're taking our time, making sure our rails are tight, that the utility is functional, it works through our community and our early adopters, and then so by the time we launch V1 of zones and derp, it's a very, very robust, solid feature added platform that you can pick and choose what you need to facilitate your business, whether small or large.
Well, that's great. If there's anybody who wants to come up again, you're more than welcome. Guys, before we go, I'm not saying we have to end today. If anybody's got more questions, feel free. But before we go today, just want to make sure for somebody that might have joined late, just make sure before we end, you guys just update any way to get involved, whether it be for the LSX launch, or you can contact us about getting involved with the validator side, CAF LSI. Camel's got the Bruges LSI validators. There's going to be multiple ways you can get involved and support what's being built here, and all parties involved. So just make sure you guys touch on that before we go.
Yeah, and one other thing for any listeners or friends of listeners that are not crypto people and would like to partake, and all they have is fiat, US fiat, they can still fill out the landing page and they'll get a direct invite, and they can actually facilitate that through PayPal. And then we would spin their zone up and deliver their keys once the fiat clears. That's the beautiful thing about Coreum and USDC. It's immediate, but fiat, we have a process for that. So if anyone's intimidated about the landing page and don't want to spit up a wallet, or have a family member that doesn't even want to deal with wallets or whatnot, they can still fill out the landing page, and we'll hand walk them through the process, and we'll designate their FBZ appropriately.
One more thing. I believe it was Henry who said that you guys have a referral program you guys are working on. If anybody onboards any new customers for you guys. Was that something that I heard?
Absolutely, Ralphie. Yeah. So in the Web2 world, it's not uncommon to have, hunters out there. So we have a bounty of 10% on the initial setup fee. So some of these enterprise platforms that I migrate, on the low end, 15 grand, on the high end, $250,000. But it would be a 10% bounty on the initial fees that we bring in. And we account for that under the foundation, because every Web2 fee build that we bring on, we take a portion of that fee income and we add it to the foundation's bonding zone to perpetuity. So that's another way that we're going to grind the next 3 years and add a lot of liquidity just through our sweat equity and our multiple teams spinning up these derp zones. And then I think organically, if we have 1,000 D zones, just because people are pulling UBZs and validating and relaying, or they spun up a UBZ because they want a Discord and they want rewards for it, or they have a need for an intra-DAO for their company. They can. So we're gonna have a lot of different marketplaces with different branding styles, but at the core essence of it will always be LSX tokens. So that's why we feel it'd be a good investment. And the primary reason why we didn't want to do an airdrop in AMM, because we want to set the tone for value. What does value really mean, right? And because of Coreum smart token feature sets, we're able to set dials up to such that we can ensure a dollar peg. But what we're really going to do is make sure that we have a consistent set of appreciation for LSX every single year. So tide raises all ships.
Oh, that's great. You mentioned a couple times now, maybe if there's something to expand on, is relaying. And then the other question I had would be, as far as a validator as a service? Are you looking to provide that on other chains possibly?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, being a SaaS-based company and a DSaaS or SDaaS, software decentralized as a service, that's definitely going to be a big part of the UBZ ecosystem in terms of utility. So, Coreum needs to set up some relays. They announced that a few weeks ago for XRPL, and obviously we put in our application because we definitely want them to select us to be one of the relays. But within and again, Ralphie, the bounty is only for FBZs, right? Because in the future we won't have to pay a referral fee. I think just our market penetration and all the different expos that we're going to do and all the different industries that I've already built. So one thing to add to this community conversation is we have already pre-made law bills. I have a financial sales floor build with a full call center environment with dashboards and IVRs and call tracking and all that wonderful stuff. So we have some real deep, in-depth enterprise type platform dashboards for financial sales, law firms. I built a medical dashboard for a couple surgical centers because they were getting a ton of business from a few personal injury law firms. So I've done a lot of unique, different dashboard type builds. So I just want to emphasize that bounty and these type of incentives will only be for FBZs, the people that really helped us get off the ground.
That's great. How big of a pitch is it for somebody like me? I work for a very large organization that I certainly see as would benefit a great deal from what you guys are building. What's that pitch look like? Is that something that the team's got to fly in, sit down with a company of that size and have a discussion and presentation? Or is it something employee like me or a supervisor, manager can present internally in a more prepared package, I guess you could say?
A lot of times I love initial conversations. So for me, I'd jump on a phone call with anyone, anytime, any day, any time, right? Just to have an initial conversations to make sure there's a fit. We don't bring on anybody. I mean, we're not going to build stuff for knuckleheads. If they're doing stuff that's antisocial or illegal, as you guys know, we're just not going to play that game. We got a lot of AML built into our TSS. AML is anti-money laundering. So coming from the Web 2 world, having built systems where I needed either HIPAA compliance or what's called here in the United States CPI protocols in terms of high level of encryption. Henry, help me out here. Where was I going on that?
The compliance that we've been building on.
Oh yeah, yeah.
HIPAA,
So right, the anti-money laundering type issues that some companies run into. One of the dynamic feature sets of our zones that'll be unbelievable, and Devon, you'll love this too, is under the anti-money laundering, there are ways to use large language model AIs that are limited into that zone where it can pick up certain key phrases. So internally, if you're running an HR department in a highly regulated organization, some of our AI tools are going to help HR be able to unsurface potential algorithmic concerns, if you will, and throw it on what I call a variance dashboard so that they can investigate and make sure nothing nefarious is going on. So when you talk about getting deep into AI and making sure that AI works for you versus AI being some kind of malware trap where it opens up a hole and you get ransomed or you have issues, that's a big part of our security strategy that we're going to focus on, that we embed large learning generative AI models that are centric to that zone but have no way of getting out of control. So we're staying really in tune to how quickly that industry is evolving, but we're also selecting areas of AI that are going to benefit our zones in a way that improves security and helps the operator achieve their goals more efficiently through AI. But having that trust and security of knowing that AI model is something that's baked in and built in, you don't have to worry about all the possible vulnerabilities that just downloading a little AI DApp will do, and it has been doing to a lot of organizations, believe it or not. So you just have to be kind of really careful with AI. We plan on taming it, controlling it and placing it in such a manner that can only do certain things within that ecosystem. So not only are we deep in blockchain, we're also deep in AI, but we're not pushing AI because AI is just part of the stack that needs to be there to be more efficient and more profitable.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, you guys have laid a lot out. Anybody have any further questions for
I got
Patrick?
one. I
Yeah.
got one. And let's just ask it because there's been things where like people have asked and I'm like, there's no way they're doing that as well. And yet they are. Are you guys looking to do merchant services as well?
I think believe it or not, I think the merchant services industry, Swift, MasterCard, Visa, I think their runway is shorter than we all think. I know that we're probably stuck in a merchant services world for what, another probably 2 to 3 years until everyone bounces off Swift, right? And more into a wallet type direct access, direct payment, direct receipt environment, which is what we're all building. I had a little merchant services division about 8 or 9 years ago. I dumped it just because it was more of a headache than it was fun. I have buddies that have been in ISO here in the States, which is a pretty heavy duty merchant services guy for about 20 years. And I'm just watching him implode. So I feel for that industry and I hope that they have the foresight to start building tools like we are, or they're going to become a dinosaur. I think 2 to 3 or 4% to pay for transactions is ridiculous. I think XRPL at 0.0001 is much more appetizing to me.
Here's I think the answer, Ralphie, is they're gonna want it later. That's not our focus for now. But that's definitely something that we
It's
think
not our
that
focus,
they're gonna need.
Henry. Yeah, Henry, it's not our focus because inherently our zones from an organizational perspective, right? Someone who wants to be able to charge their client fees, they're going to have their corporate wallet. So you can give your clients the wallet addresses to your zone's liquidity pools or ecosystem, and you're going to be able to just have your clients pay you direct. I mean, that's one of the major things that we were focused on with Kepler and our initial SBTs was to give our employees autonomy over their own wallet as long as they worked for the zone. The minute they leave the zone, that wallet is archived. I mean, they can push their money to their private account if they're a good company. Most companies, when they compensate their employees, but we want to remove merchant services or the need or the cost or the friction of merchant services and give Zone the direct ability for their clients to just pay their wallet, give them a wallet address, use PayPal, do whatever. But we need to streamline that process. We have to remove the friction and lower the cost, and I think that's inevitable. So, yeah, we're very focused. That's definitely on our radar. But we're looking to replace merchant services with our Zone wallet structure.
I appreciate that answer. Every time you give that 2-3 year, it kind of scares me. I think you did the same on another conversation. I was like, man, does you really think it's that quick that all this is gonna happen? Do I think it's gonna happen? Yes. Do I think it's gonna happen in that time frame? I'm a little skeptical, but you might know more than me. I think 2-3 years is very quick, but I'm not in that space 24/7.
No, you're right, Ralphie. I mean, and you're a pragmatic, practical guy, and I love your energy, and that's very, very intelligent. Yeah, no, I'm a little bombastic with my timeframes only because having been an avid nerd in the commercial-backed securities, the mortgage-backed securities, the bond market, in other words. I know what's occurred is unsustainable. And if the underpinnings of the entire system, including SWIFT, all the derivatives, is a US fiat dollar, if there is, and I'm not saying there is, I don't want to be a fearmonger. I'm just saying if there is any type of significant black swan event that would shake the global financial system and that fiat dollar, something happens to that, then you wonder how would even SWIFT operate moving forward if they haven't already determined that, holy crap, we either have to get on XRP, DAG, Link, I mean, some other huge, and they already are. We all know that they're building it. They're just not telling us. So not to be conspiratorial, I'm just saying my
I
gut
think you're
tells
good.
me
You're good. I
something.
think this is your version of the Big Short.
Well, exactly. And let me
Yeah.
tell you something. That I have some deep scars from 2006, 7, and 8. Me and my brothers were growing a financial services company, and we went through that. I literally was that man sitting on the beach when that 1,000-foot tidal wave smacked the husband and wife in that crazy apocalyptic movie, because we watched it come. We saw the tidal wave coming. We actually got rid of our warehouse lines in late 2005, put the company up for 2006, and right before the atomic bomb went off in 2007, in the secondary market, and the mortgage-backed securities basically almost completely imploded the entire global financial system, and they just started printing. And ever since 2008, they've never stopped. So you can't print that kind of currency and expect to survive that type of deflationary aspect of supply and demand. So anyway, I just have a different perspective of it. I have some battle wounds. I lost my company. I didn't lose it. We ended up selling it, but my liabilities were well over the assets what they bought. So it was just a big bailout, big pink pillow for us to fall on, and we lost our entire team. We took 7 years to grow. So it was a painful situation to go through, and unfortunately now, the more I dig deep and the more I see the Fed's actions and policy and monetary policy, I just don't trust it. So that's why I'm so deep into this world, and I'm such a decentralist, and I love IBC, and I love XRP, and I hope and pray that that community continues to grow like IBC does.
I love it, man. I love your enthusiasm as well, and you answered that very, very well. And look, I think we all understand that it's not sustainable. That system isn't sustainable. I think we all agree there. So
Patrick,
Appreciate.
to expand on what you were talking about there, just your experience in the ecosystem, the Coreum two-way bridge. Do you think that's going to generate some interest and excitement from the XRP community? I maybe more so than it has so far.
Oh, hell yeah. I think the more Coreum can do to set up relays and focus their efforts with IBC and XRPL, that's to me, that's the smart move, right? And I think they are. And I know Bob Smart and his partners. We haven't met them in person. I think we met them at their event real briefly, but we have nothing but respect and admiration and confidence in the leadership of both Solo and Coreum, or we wouldn't have built on it, right? We would have gone straight to, we would have probably have waited for the AMM on XRPL to be approved. I don't know if it's been approved or not or yet, but I'm sure it's right around the corner. But to answer the question, yeah, we definitely put in our docs with Coreum to be one of the first relayers for Coreum and XRPL, and that's fundamentally a part of our tokenomics and yield farming, and how we're going to raise the liquidity tide for our zones is through relays, LPs, validators. We're going to do everything we can to support the Coreum community in not only spinning up UBZ so they can do their own projects, dApps or tokens, AMMs and whatnot, but we want to be that safe, secure place where people feel confident with all the layers of safety and security I've put in place that their stored assets is not going anywhere.
That's great. And then for the IBC community side of it, what function or piece of Coreum technology would you point to say, hey guys, like this is really what set it apart for us, or this is some unique function that we were able to do, or a problem we were able to solve because of something that Coreum specific to do, because the IBC community understands the foundation of it. So it's just important, I think, to just tell them the story about, what maybe sets Coreum apart, because they understand the base of it.
Well, I think most of you that are true Coreum community army participants know that Coreum is a product of Sologenics being more on the XRP side, right? So I think I'm correct in that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So for their team, IBC is the new injection of their existing thought process or their code stack. So this is where George comes in, and the brevity of George's knowledge in IBC. He was actually able to unsurface a couple little rub points within the testnet with regards to IBC. So that's where we're fortunate is our team is more IBC centric, and I think we're wrapping our heads and learning more and more about the XRP side. So we are a hardcore decentralist. We are Web3. I'm super, super, super fascinated that, this thing that WEF keeps talking about and whatever that knucklehead keeps saying about, some global virus that'll make COVID look like an inconvenience. And again, I'm not being conspiratorial. I'm just saying, I'm speaking what this dude's, saying on Twitter. Well, the only way they can really facilitate that is if they pull the plug from TCP/IP. For most youth and most younger people that are jumping into Web3 and really diving into technology and starting to really love this type of stuff, well, everything in this world currently runs on TCP/IP. So all they'd have to do is unplug that and everything stops. So I'm keeping an eye on my backups. I'm keeping an eye on CCID. I know that Space Force Starlink launched a couple satellites where you'll have mobile direct to satellite internet where you can bypass some of the major carriers. So I'm just very fascinated and in tune to what the global TCP/IP ecosystem will or will not do if they try if they do try to create some kind of disruption. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is if you're a derp zone, you don't need the internet. You have your data localized. It's premise based, meaning you won't be able to make phone calls or send emails, but you have control over your data. And because of the way that we're hybrid and we mirror and then we decentralize that to other continents, if your building got blown up or caught on fire and your server goes down, well, we got that full mirrored backup within minutes that we can spin up on an Azure stack and get you up and running. So a lot of our derp zones is the way we're building local nodes and hardware stacks to decentralize our entire ecosystem. So it just feeds on itself. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I think just to expand on your initial question, Chris, that I think George would really provide detailed technical info on is the number one tool that, because we were built on Juno, and we love Juno. It was easy to build, spin up our DApp and our SBT structured, have it do everything we wanted. We loved it. It was great. And then we came across Coreum, and we've always wanted to build the dual token model. And we were playing around with a few different concepts on different networks. But a lot of it just didn't seem safe enough to do and to provide benefit for enterprises. So when we came across Coreum and smart tokens and some of the like on-off features of the smart tokens, that was a big like wake up call where it was like this would be the way to build this token and maybe whitelist for each zone. Patrick, if you want to expand on that and lead George into a little bit.
Yeah, no, George could talk to specificity in terms of what he saw within the code and smart token contract type technology. But when we were building our first SBT DApp, one of the things I knew right off the bat that it would not, IBC just in its current iterance wouldn't be enough to push major data sets back and forth like LLMs and full zones, right? So I started looking at DAG. If anyone's familiar with DAG, dyslexic.
No, it's decyclic autonomous
Decyclic.
graph.
Yep, there you go. So DAG's a big data set, big highway for data like Link. Obviously XRP. So for me, we love IBC in terms of when we were initially building, but we found very quickly we're going to need a bigger highway to transmit data so that we can fractionalize and decentralize these big mirror sets of data. So when XRP was attacked by this current administration, for me, that was a kind of a signaling DAO type thing where I went in deep and started looking at XRP, XRPL, the minute that or the day after the lawsuit dropped or was announced. So as I went down that rabbit hole, I started really following XRP. I started loving XRP. I started seeing all the utility. I'm watching them sign up all these central banks, Wells Fargo, B of A, and then Swift. And I'm like, okay, here we go. This is where we need to be. So at one point we saw the proposal for Atom 2.0, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe combine a little IBC with some proof of work or whatever they were trying to articulate. I was pretty fired up about it, and then it got turned down literally within a week to week and a half. And I might have shared this before, and I apologize if I did. But Henry came across Coreum. And the minute he goes, look at this, and I saw, oh, wait, it's IBC and XRP? I'm like, dang. And then I literally got out of my seat and went to look at his screen, and he was showing me. I'm like, oh, we got to be that mainnet and just pay attention. Maybe that's a fit for us. And then I think Henry discovered the grant, and it just kind of snowballed from there. But it was the lawsuit from this current administration against XRP that sucked me into the XRP army. And I knew that set of rails would be large enough to handle some of our MVP 2 strategies. But more importantly, I just became a fan and knew that IBC XRP would come together eventually. And then boom, Coreum came, and it was a match made in heaven.
That's a great story. And so just going back to the basics of it then, so what drove you guys to want to have a 2 token platform then? Like obviously you're not trying to do a raise off your tokens, you're not doing airdrop AMM. So like what was the main thing that said, hey, we want a 2 token project?
Well, I knew, or I felt, just with how early we are for ourselves, not to say that the industry's early, the industry's been around for 15 years now. When you think about the first iterants of Bitcoin, in fact, I think XRP was actually filed before Bitcoin, but and I got stung about 7-8 years ago on a little project that I thought was pretty interesting on a mobile app strategy. So, when Bitcoin was like about $1,000, so for me, I thought, being a decentralist, a libertarian myself here in the United States, I'm about sovereignty and giving people the keys to their own kingdom and let them fend for themselves. I don't need the government to hold my hand. So I try to bring my own internal philosophy about freedom and sovereignty, and your ability to control and own your own data is essential, I think, for most business owners. So because I was a child of the 90s in terms of the first Windows 1.0 Act, which was a CRM 1.0, and all these early Windows type products that we used on a daily basis, you go from a Web 1 perspective where you're just looking at stuff saying, oh, this is cool, but all right, whatever. Kind of like an NFT, not really, but you're just looking at it, you're like, okay, that's cool. And then Web 2 came around and was like, oh, there's fields. You can enter stuff on and click a button and it goes somewhere. So, having gone through that process in my 20s and having a financial services company, I went deep. So, at a very early age, 30 years ago, I was using these tools to just do my own thing and just growing with the industry. Having gone through 1999, that was a big scare. Obviously, 2001, 9/11, one of those towers on one of our financial companies had, probably 150 transactions of ours that just disappeared overnight. So, when you've gone through some of the wars that I've gone through, to come out the other side with some of this process and IP, I feel is a gift from above. And all I want to do is share that. I want to share some of these scars and wounds and create easier process for people to use, and then support their endeavors in such a way that they feel like, oh God, where have you been all my life? That's the energy we're trying to bring to the table.
And that's really the structure, the dual token, and why we wanted to do 2 tokens is because we are bringing real benefit to the enterprises in a potentially white labeled token where they can facilitate blockchain transactions. So that's so that's just one side of the token. We wanted to accomplish that, but we also want to be out there in the Web3 market with our own token and actually facilitate the interplay between the 2 tokens. And I
Now,
think
that's a
there are
great.
a few. There's one good example out there that does that. That I don't know about the actual true utility and like if it's actually a good project, but it's a good idea of how to use 2 tokens. It's Steppen GMT token is something that I followed like 4 or 5 years ago when they first started, and I was like, oh, dual token model where they have their own reward token inside the platform that um, transitions into a actual on-chain token. So that was kind of the thought process behind a dual token model.
See, and this is where the symbiotic dance that Henry and I have. So my brain is a little slower, a little grayer. His is fresh. So sometimes when I get off topic, he's so perfect in bringing me back to the point. But you asked a very good question. I always kind of tend off and go on a tangent. But the reason for the dual token strategy, Chris, was fundamentally, psychologically, what I'm trying to do is replace this debt-based society where everyone's on that proverbial billing treadmill. Even George said, I mean, my Azure cost just to host Camel's validator and your guys' validator is $2,000 a month. And that's a real cost. We're willing to do that because we know that's the safest, most secure ecosystem right now to run that Linux and that software for you guys. But we're working diligently on, reaching out to Akash in different buckets like space and time to reduce that cost so that we can improve the liquidity and API of our bonding zone. So the purpose for the dual token strategy is to create an asset-based society, right? So the more your company grows, the more you stake and bond to perpetuity in your own treasury, and the more your staff uses the HAMP protocol, and the more that our ecosystem creates APY, all of a sudden you look up and instead of spending $1,800 to $2,700 to run a small SME and third-party costs, you're actually making a couple grand a month because of the HAMP protocol baked into the LSX token, and because of the uniqueness on how an LSX token is minted. There's not millions and billions out there where you're going to see a significant volatility, and also the two different elements that you're always combating, which is deflation and permanent loss. So we're really trying to solve some of those elements by the uniqueness of this L2 protocol reward strategy. So again, fundamentally, the underpinnings, mission, vision is to get your zone making you money by using it the right way and not having to consistently pay third-party software costs because it's all baked into your zone. That's fundamentally our goal. Will we get there? It's going to take more than a couple years, I'll tell you that. But that's the goal. That's the roadmap, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
Well, more than excited to be part of that journey. That is for sure. I love your guys' energy. I appreciate the time you're giving of yourselves to our community to get your message out there and get people involved in an informed way. Because that's the most important thing here, is that everybody can get the access to the information to make informed decisions and support the projects that resonate with them. And I couldn't thank you guys enough. I'm very excited for what lies ahead with Lunarspace and the Coreum community DAO and its partners.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Articulate, and everyone coming up and talking to us. It's been a blast. Can't wait to keep doing this stuff as we develop new, cool utilities for the utility bonding zones. I'm gonna send out a lot of stuff to a lot of you guys, a lot of the initial founders. Devon, I'll be in contact about some of the troubleshooting issues going on, and yeah, no, I loved it. All of you guys, thank you so much. If there are any other questions, I'm still available. So
Yeah, real quick. I was just going through my checklist because I did have a bunch of questions, and one I had was with the wallet control that you guys are providing. Do you see a use for that for NFT creators possibly?
yes,
Absolutely. Absolutely, because remember, any group, any organization, even down to these small municipalities, these small towns, we're trying to create a treasury ecosystem where if you take a bond, a general bond, I'm sorry, a bonding zone, and spin it up relative to the utility you're trying to extrapolate from it, we are creating a wallet structure within the UI and within the back end that the super admin of that zone has full control over. So it's unlimited users. You don't pay per user, you don't pay per seat. It is built in. So if you bring someone into the group, great. You spin them up a wallet, you create a user, they're in your zone. The minute they leave, we archive everything. I'm a big proponent of never deleting anything. Just archive the wallet so you have the activity. All of the activity from the HAMP protocol will be dual ledgered, both on potentially a blockchain but more importantly locally within the backend database. So we'll have several copies of the activity being produced by zones in their HAMP protocol. But in terms of the liquidity, The wallet structure, yeah, it's going to be fully functional. You might have people pull up a UBZ just for that. They just want a way to compensate a bunch of independent contractors. Or like I said, we're going to have a nonprofit zone where, let's say you're running an NGO or a nonprofit and you want infrastructure to be able to reward, compensate, and bring in, or in a place to put the grants and the income coming into that nonprofit can go through the wallet structure. So absolutely, it's going to be a fully functional treasury and financial utility within the zone.
And to just piggyback off that real quick, the SPT structure that is in the wallet of each zone, you can kind of think of the hierarchy as that we have super admins. The super admin can assign admins, and the admins can have teammates underneath them. So like employees, a hierarchy system that feeds into one soulbound token that the organization owns. So that's that key soulbound token mechanism. So for technical people out there, you can kind of think of that soulbound token and that hierarchy strategy as a sharding strategy. So SHARDING. It was briefly mentioned when I think Vitalik of ETH mentioned soulbound tokens and sharding them. And that to me rang very true for a hierarchy system for employees. If you can fractionalize the token to provide access and facilitate rewards, then that could be a real utility for enterprises to utilize on chain. So that's a key thing that I think any organized structure can use that, especially NFTs and NFT companies and DAOs and a whole bunch of different things. And that's where the privacy as a service comes in, and that's the DPass SPT. So
It's a great point, Henry. I mean, that's exactly what we initially developed, right? So you look at a zone, the wallet or the ID to that zone is soul bound. It has to be bound to that zone. And then we sharded off for all the wallets so that all the wallets kind of reside up to that hierarchical approach to management. But Devon, to your point, from a HR perspective, and then you factor in HAMP to clearly define job description, roles, and responsibilities. And then you have your monetary system all within your dashboard as a super admin. And then you delegate administrative management roles to your underlying leadership, and then each leadership has relatively assigned users that they have access to see their activity, their wallets, to bonus, to reward, all those wonderful things that you could do all within the intrazone treasury ecosystem. And that's why we went with the two token strategy, because it just gives us the liquidity and flexibility to be able to dynamically create very highly complicated protocols all the way down to very simple, small mom and pop coffee shop type. Hey, we got 4 employees. They do this amount on a weekly basis. I'd like to give them a $50 bonus if they do a great job. And that's where you set your weekly goal and you build the HAMP protocol so that they know what they're doing every time they log in. We're also going to have POS. We're going to do point of sale type builds. So restaurants, all the little mom and pop shops, we can sell a zone and they'll have a utility within that zone so they can execute their business process and make money doing it.
Patrick, I have a quick question for you. So, with regards to your experience, in the Web2 world and what you've been doing all along, how important is the ISO 222 being baked into the code for Coreum? What does that mean to you, being a person that probably has some familiarity with that?
Well, for anyone that's listening that isn't super familiar with what ISO represents, it's basically International Standards Organization. And if you do any research on that organization itself, it's a nonprofit. And what that nonprofit, its mission and vision is to bring the brightest minds around the world from all these different companies, bring them together and write process for a particular thing. Give you an example. Back in 2008 and 9, when the financial markets were crashing, I wanted to reinvent myself. I was a heavy duty surfer as a youth, so I was always in the ocean. And mainstream media was pumping green. Everything was green. So I spun up a company called workgreen.org. It was going to be a 501c3 nonprofit where I used an ISO standard 14001 back in 2000, I believe it was 8 or 9. And that particular standard, ISO 14001, was a way for an organization to create green policies within their organization and execute on those policies, right? So how my question to a lot of these companies, like you say you're green, great. What makes you green? Well, I sell this bamboo plate. Well, that's cool. But how do I know you're green? How do I know you're really committed to, an environmentally safe and clean environment for your employees? Well, I never thought about it that way. So I said, well, here's a standard, 14001. We created a front-end UI, a wizard, if you will, that would enable a small organization to set their green policy, assign, because the ISO standard requires someone to be in charge of the policy, right? Because anytime you create a policy, it has to be re-reviewed, updated, and released, and then therefore taught. So I have some personal intimate experience using ISO in a strategy that I thought was appropriate at the time. Right when I went to market, the financial crisis hit in late 2009 and 10, and I ended up shutting it down because no one had any money to feel good about going green. But the whole premise of that was to get companies to certify green, and then on the internet, on their website, promote the wonderful things they were doing to limit pollution and what they did internally as an organization to be more environmentally friendly at the workplace, like don't buy styrofoam plates, buy paper plates, so on and so forth. So International Standards Organization is a bunch of very, very highbrow, intelligent people coming together, creating process that they fight over, and then they all agree that, hey, this process, this standard 222, we feel that if anyone building on blockchain uses this standard as an underpinning of their blockchain, they will more than likely be compliant with everyone else. So it's more of a let's say a set of guidelines that people can glom to and build around. It's not necessarily that in itself that's going to make you bulletproof, but it's the standard, it's the understanding of the process, and then baking that into what you're doing that will allow you to say, hey, we're ISO 222 compliant because our blockchain was developed per those standards per ISO, if that makes sense. So I use ISO as fundamentally a source of truth, if you will, based on very smart people around the world coming together, putting their thoughts together in building a process for a particular thing, if you will. Hopefully that answered it.
Yes, thank you.
Devon, go ahead.
Yeah, I've always wanted to get more of a technical answer to this question. I don't know if Henry, if you can answer, or Patrick, but we know that ISO is just the messaging standard, as you were just referring to, right? So people often may say ISO compliant tokens, and we know that's not necessarily a correct way of going about saying that. But it is my understanding that with Coreum, it is quite different because the actual smart tokens that Coreum has can be wrapped in the ISO compliant message and be used in that way as well. So is that true?
That's the way I understand it. You're absolutely right. It's a way to make sure that the messaging is compliant to that standard and has a certain amount, all the different elements that make it safe and secure relative to that ISO. But what you just said is even getting more literal, and it's awesome to see that you're going deep with ISO because again, as you know, it's a standard, and if we're coming out on this standard, then everything we do when we actually go to release, we will use a third party that's what they do. They take the standard, they look at our Rails, they look at our code stack, and they say, you know what, you fit the standard guidelines, therefore you can be considered an ISO 22 compliant. It's not automatically assumed. It's something that you use in your trinity of safety and security as a compass and as a set of guidelines to ensure that when you release that you are compliant and you've had a third party look at your stack and say, we agree with you.
Right. And just to be clear, it's not the Coreum token in and of itself that can do the ISO messaging. It's the smart tokens that are on Coreum, right?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
And that's where
Well, fundamentally,
it's
the underpinnings is
adaptable.
the underpinnings is the blockchain, but yeah, the smart contract that sits on that injects and sits on the blockchain, both should be compliant.
Got it.
But
But
again,
yeah, ISO.
it's such a new emerging industry. Those type of things help companies like ourselves, and the developers and the engineers and the process engineers, in terms of directional development and making sure that we keep checking back to the standards. We're working toward a very safe, secure, so that you could have multiple third parties that are intimate with that ISO standard and that messaging, and they validate that what we've built is ISO compliant. It's not really, ISO doesn't do the certification. It's just providing the standards so that you can work with firms like Cube3 and different chain analysis type firms that to work in combination in symbiotic nature to make sure that when we deploy V1, that we have other companies also confirming that we've built in an ISO 222 standard compliant way. I hope that answered.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely.
The question I had, the events transactions there that generate HAMP, do those happen on chain?
No, so the backend zone, right, that is supporting the database and supporting the UI will accumulate and ledger the activity. And once the activity reaches 100 units, the backend sends a secure message to the zone, that particular bond, that zone's what we call the zone factory. It takes the message from the certified backend, the zero.
If George wants to get technical with this, I know because George has this was a key philosophy that we kind of debated at the beginning of what we wanted to do with our dual token, and I think George provided the best insight as to.
Right, but just fundamentally, Henry, let me finish. So the back end does all the heavy lifting in terms of the ledgering and tracking of the user's actions for HAMP. But once it reaches the 100 HAMP number relative to the goal that is set, whether it's day, week, month, quarter, annual, the backend sends a message to the smart contract zone factory, and therefore it informs the zone factory to min 100 HAMP. And then dynamically, the 100 HAMP is swapped to one LSX, burn the HAMP. We still ledger it, but burn it. And then the LSX is automatically staked into that bonding zone's liquidity pool. I just saw George come up. George, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, add to what's on chain when it comes to HAMP.
Yeah, so I think what you guys have said does perfectly describe what we're building. So HAMP on chain is basically a smart token, but is managed by different smart contracts. So a account on Coreum can never own HAMP, right? HAMP is only owned and registered in smart contracts, and the reason is do not want people to sell, transfer, or do anything with HAMP because it's only a human mining tracking protocol, where human activity mining protocol, which tracks basically activity on chain, and that's it. So how we designed it is pretty cool, and we're using smart tokens in a very innovative way where you don't even own these smart tokens but are just a representation of your activity. And I think we benefit from the network effect where the more people we can onboard on chain and onboard into zones, the more the HAMP has value because it tracks even more and more activity. And then the more activity you track, the more you can optimize AI on it, and etc.
Yeah, nailed it. Thanks, George.
Thanks, George. Yep. He knows it. He built it.
I appreciate that, guys, and that's why, again, thank you all so much for gathering here to provide us these answers. And Ralphie, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to make this too much longer because I know you guys have been on for like 3 hours. But a little while ago, I was very tuned in to why you guys chose Corium, and you had mentioned what you guys saw in the code, and that once George jumped up here, I'm taking the opportunity to kind of ask George, what was it in Corium's code that you guys saw beneficial to actually build on top of Corium? I know that Patrick mentioned, IBC and the XRP ties, but for us to understand Corium a little bit better, and for the ones that push Corium, if you guys could give us anything that helps us explain what Coreum is and how beneficial Coreum could be to the blockchain space and to people building on it, what could you tell us on that?
Yeah, so basically, all Cosmos chains have IBC, which is very cool and a very interesting technology, as well as XRPL is also very interesting, which are both add-ons. But I think the most powerful technology that Corium has, which other chains do not have, is the smart tokens technology. And the reason is the smart tokens technology allows you to create native tokens on chain, which first makes IBC cheaper, faster, and easier, makes all smart contract development easier for developers because you do not need to interact with a separate contract for example, a ERC20, which is a smart contract basically. So the token does not really exist on chain, it exists in a registry in a contract. While the Coreum token exists directly on the blockchain. It's like a native token similarly to Core. There's no difference at all, right? While an ERC20 or CW20 or any other fungible token on other chains is basically attached to a registry in the contract, which is basically okay, but way different than what you have on Coreum, way slower, way more, um, if you want, expensive to compute. So on the long run, that's what I think Coreum has the biggest strength in. Now, of course, there's different strength. Being connected to IBC is also amazing, but this is its, if you want, its core strength.
Thank you
I
for
love
that,
when
George.
I love when George goes deep. It's like it's. I mean, it's just when we talk nerd. I don't know what it does, but it fires me up. Half the stuff I'm still learning. Half the stuff I kind of understand, and then there's the other half that's just I think insane, and I'm just trying to catch up to that dude.
No, that was great. But to your point there, Patrick, I think that we're all still trying to understand things, and even from what you guys, that's why I appreciate you guys jumping on these spaces, and being available for some of these questions, because it's very hard for us, let's call us ourselves normies, to understand some of the underlying technology behind and of what's really going on. And you guys have been amazing in answering a lot of these questions. So yeah, thank you.
No,
Um,
thank you.
It's our
uh,
pleasure, man. We like I said, you guys can tell we live, eat, sleep this. We couldn't be any more excited about where the direction of the entire community is going. Certainly our build, we need to do everything in our power to protect Corium and protect our L1 because our L2 is so critical for our growth and certainly for everybody's stored value. We just want to make sure we have a safe, cool place to go. If you want to, place your trust in us, we're going to make sure that we do everything in our power using ISO, using a third-party insurance policy, using a third-party chain analysis company when we deploy V1, so that we have one of the tightest, most secure ecosystems where people will trust us. So that's it's all about trust.
George, I'm glad you're here. I had a type of technical question for you. I was having a discussion late last week, and it had to do with when the two-way bridge is built between Coreum and XRP Ledger and enabling that transfer to IBC. Someone was asking in terms of asset representation. Say, for instance, when you tokenize something on the XRP Ledger or NFT or something, when you bring it across to the IBC, what do you get there? Do you get the full representation of that asset, or is it a version of or a placeholder, pretty much?
Yeah, so basically what IBC and the bridge do is that they freeze the asset on chain. So let's say I'm bridging from Coreum to another IBC chain or XRPL. They freeze the Coreum or the token, whatever it is, on Coreum, and then they release this token, a copy of it, on the other chain, right? But it's frozen on the native chain until you send it back, right? So this is how it works. You cannot transfer a token from one chain to another, but basically you create a representation of this token on the other chain, and then this one, the one you have on Coreum, for example, is frozen until you get it back. This is how relayers work on IBC.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That's great, guys. I'll give one last call out. Anybody wants to come up? Been a lot of great information shared. I just took a picture of the big bull in the field beside me in the sun here. That's how I'm feeling today. More bullish than ever on this project and this community. It's a great time here today. One last call. Anybody wants to come up, throw up a request?
One thing I'll kind of use as my sign off if no one has any other questions. I mean, we're so appreciative of everybody, and there's no pressure for anyone to jump into that pre-sale, but we do feel like we have a pretty fun strategy that we're going to give a lot of love to our FBZs, our founding bonding zones, and anyone that has any challenge or question, please feel free to DM Henry direct, and he'll accommodate you in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, once we're done this smart contract, it locks up, it's done. The only way an LSX can be minted is through various styles and types of protocols. So we're super fired up, and we appreciate your guys' time and energy today. 3 hours, that's awesome.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much. Likewise, if you guys want to learn more about what we're trying to do with Lunarspace and our project, the Coreum Community DAO, just head over to our Discord, coreumcommunitydao.com. You can easily get in touch with Patrick, Henry. They're very, very accessible guys and willing to share, as you can see today. I can't thank them enough. With that, I think, Devon just got in at the nick of time there. One more from Devon.
Oh yeah, no
One more-
question. No question.
One more
needed.
gem.
I was just gonna ask Henry. I was gonna say I was gonna stay on Twitter a little bit after the space in case I could catch you to talk to you further.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, guys, if you want to give one last shout out how everybody can get involved, if they've just come in and want to get involved with you guys, just give one last bit of advice on how they can participate right now in the launch.
Well, one thing I'd say is exactly what Ollie has done. You know, we have great dialogues back and forth. Sometimes I get a little caught up, as he mentioned. It's hard sometimes to get to all of them, but you know, we'd love to collaborate. If you have an idea for a utility bonding zone, share it with us. If you want to lead that project, we will, you know, we have grant funds that will come alive in the near future, but we're live on mainnet. What you see is not testnet, and George has tested the heck out of it. So this is a live SEX, centralized exchange for Lunarspace only, and it's a way for you to easily purchase with Coreum. But he also built a smart contract to be able to accept USDC. If you have any family or friends that want to participate and they have just US fiat dollars, then Henry will send them a direct link to our PayPal account, and then we'll spin their zone up and send their keys directly. So we're live. We're ready to start this journey with whoever wants to partake in an FBZ, and I just appreciate you guys big time.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Appreciate talking to you guys, and everyone continue to look out for my correspondence on Discord and Telegram and Twitter, and DM me at any time. I'm doing my best to respond. Always available to talk at length with all you guys. So yeah, thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Right on, guys. We're going to wrap it up here for today. Don't forget to set your reminders. I'll get the link out here shortly for next week. We have episode 9 with the Whelp team to talk about an update on what's going on with their decks. It's going to be another powerful episode. Again, guys, not too many people sit back with me for 3.5 hours like you guys have. Hats off to you. More than excited to be partnered with you guys. And if anybody wants to learn more about that, again, get into our Discord. Happy to talk about it. That's it for today, guys. Peace and prosperity to you all.
Thanks again, guys. Bye-bye.
Check it. So many open doors, it's hard to ignore. Every year was my year, but this year I'm sure. They're on a virtual tour. Girl, them a bubble to the floor. Every year was my year, but this year I'm sure. The storm is here, but it won't stay. Where there is a will, there must be a way. Me have to win, come what may. Clasp my hands every day, I pray. kinda confused. Every time positivity me choose. So many open doors, it's hard to ignore. Every year was my year, but this year I'm sure. They on a virtual tour, girl them a bubble to the floor. Every year was my year, but this year I'm sure. Lyrics are pour from my heart, tunes for you climb up the chart. Destiny create me path, remain humble, don't exalt. Lockdown life rough, we can't do too much. Wait till COVID up, a big dance we a bus. Make sure you prepare yourself, cause when the clock strike 12, things get dark, dark start back. You a go ball out hell. So many open doors, it's hard to ignore. Every year was my year, but this year I'm sure. They on a virtual tour, girl them a bubble to the floor. Every year was my year, but this year I'm sure.